You've seen the quaint illustrations in children's books. You've watched the sanitized period dramas on TV. The Victorian poor were just plucky characters with smudged faces and charming accents, right? Scrappy Oliver Twist types asking for more gruel with an adorable lisp. Nothing could be further from the truth. The reality of Victorian poverty was a waking nightmare that claimed millions of lives, a system so cruel that entering a workhouse was considered a fate worse than death. And what most people don't realise is that 1 in 10 modern Britons has direct ancestors who suffered inside these grim institutions. So, yeah, if these stories help you sleep, hit subscribe so you don't miss any. And I'm curious, what time is it where you are? Comment your location and time. I saw someone from Iceland commented once, and I had to Google what time zone that even is. Alright, let's head back to Victorian England. Trust me, it's going to be quite a ride. But first, get comfortable. Seriously. Adjust those pillows, pull up that blanket, because where we're going, you're going to want to be cozy. Your eyes slowly crack open to the sound of a bell clanging relentlessly. The first thing that hits you is the smell, a putrid mixture of unwashed bodies, harsh lye soap, and something worse you can't quite identify, but you will. Oh, you will. It's 5:30 a.m. on a January morning in 1850, and you've just woken up in a Victorian workhouse. Unlike your soft bed with its memory foam mattress, you're lying on a thin straw pallet barely an inch thick. The iron bedstead beneath digs into your back, and the rough wool blanket covering you scratches your skin raw. Your breath forms a cloud in the freezing air. Around you, dozens of other bodies stir on identical beds, packed so tightly together you could reach out and touch your neighbours on either side. The dormitory is vast and drafty, with high ceilings that trap the cold and bare stone floors that radiate it back up through your body. Through tall, narrow windows with no curtains, you can see it's still pitch black outside. Wait, is that movement in your mattress? Yep. Your bed is alive with lice and fleas that spent the night feasting on your blood. You'll get used to it. Maybe. Up now comes a shout from the doorway. A stern-faced man in a dark uniform sweeps his gaze across the room. Anyone not at roll call in 15 minutes loses breakfast? The threat of missing breakfast, even the slop they serve here, is enough to send everyone scrambling. Your stomach is already cramping with hunger. Yesterday you worked 14 hours and were fed exactly 3 times. A breakfast of watery gruel and a chunk of bread. A dinner of thin soup with a potato, and a supper of bread with a scraping of cheese. Your body needs more, but it won't get it. You're probably thinking, I'd just leave. This is awful. Except you can't. You're here because the alternative was starving to death on the streets. There's no welfare, no food banks, no social safety net outside these walls. It's 1850, and this Victorian workhouse is both your prison and your only lifeline. The man next to you starts coughing violently, his thin chest heaving beneath his nightshirt. He holds a rag to his mouth, and when he pulls it away, you see it speckled with blood, consumption, tuberculosis, and he's sleeping 3 feet from you in a room with no ventilation. Good luck with that. First day, whispers a woman on your other side. Her face is a road map of wrinkles, though she's probably only in her 40s. Life here ages you faster than you can imagine. You nod. Word of advice, she mutters, glancing nervously at the door. Don't look the master in the eye. Don't ask questions. And whatever you do, don't cry when they take your children. My children, you ask, your heart suddenly pounding. They separate everyone, she explains, her voice hollow. Men from women, children from parents. That's the first thing they do. Before you can ask more, a bell rings again, and everyone begins shuffling toward the door, pulling workhouse uniforms over their nightclothes. You follow, your bare feet numb on the icy stone floor. The corridor outside is dimly lit with gas lamps that cast more shadows than light. Men and women are separating into different directions. From somewhere distant, you hear a child crying, the sound quickly muffled. Welcome to your new life. The previous day's events rush back to you in fragments: the desperate walk to the workhouse gates after your landlord evicted you, the humiliating interview with the Board of Guardians, local businessmen and clergymen who oversee the poor law, their thinly veiled disgust as they questioned you. And what has brought you to this state? Drink, gambling, loose morals? Then the processing. Oh God, the processing. They took everything. Your clothes, the few possessions you had left, even the locket with your mother's picture, all placed in a bag, tagged and stored away. You'll get them back when you leave, said the porter, if you leave. Then the bath. A large communal tub where the water had already been used by a dozen others before you. Cold, scummy water that made your skin crawl, and the watchers, workhouse staff standing there, observing your nakedness, commenting on your body as if you were livestock. "Looks healthy enough for the laundry," one said to another, "though a bit thin." "They're all thin," replied the other. "It's why they're here." After the bath came the uniform. For men, coarse trousers and shirts of striped fabric that immediately made your skin itch. For women, shapeless dresses, equally itchy, with white caps that cover your hair. And everyone gets the same heavy, hobnailed boots that never quite fit right and clack loudly on the stone floors, announcing your movements. The shoes are actually one of the few mercies. At least your feet are protected from the cold. Many of the children have broken chilblains, painful sores from frostbitten toes that never quite heal in these conditions. Now, as you line up for roll call in a courtyard open to the elements, you finally see the workhouse in daylight. It's a massive brick structure designed to look like a prison, which in many ways it is. High walls topped with spikes, small windows set deep in thick walls, separate yards for men, women, boys and girls, each divided by more walls, and everywhere, painted on walls and posted on boards, are the rules. So many rules. No talking during meals, no shirking of assigned labour, no communication between males and females, no complaints about food or accommodation, no malingering or feigning illness. The penalties for breaking these rules are listed too: reduced food rations, solitary confinement, in some cases, actual imprisonment. This isn't just poverty relief, it's a system designed to punish you for being poor. Roll call is a grim affair. The workhouse master, a man with mutton chop sideburns and a permanent scowl, reads names from a ledger while his assistant marks attendance. Some names receive no answer. Thompson, Mary, silence. Thompson, died in the night, sir, calls a voice from the women's line. Infirmary ward. The master makes a notation without changing expression. Jenkins, William. Your name is called. You respond. Your presence is noted with the same indifference as the death was recorded. In the Victorian workhouse, both living and dying are bureaucratic inconveniences. After roll call comes breakfast in a vast, echoing dining hall. Men sit on one side, women on the other. Children have their own separate dining area entirely. The benches are hard wood, the tables scrubbed so aggressively over the years that the grain is worn smooth. A bell rings, and everyone sits in perfect unison. Another bell, and everyone bows their head as the chaplain delivers a monotone prayer thanking God for this charitable relief and asking him to bless the generous parish for providing it. The irony is thick enough to choke on. The food arrives in large, dented metal vats carried by inmates assigned to kitchen duty. The smell hits you first, a bland, watery aroma that promises little nourishment. Each person receives a wooden bowl of gruel, essentially watered-down oatmeal with the consistency of wallpaper paste, and a chunk of dark bread. Is this all?" you whisper to the man next to you. He looks at you like you're insane for even asking. It's Tuesday, he says, as if that explains everything. You'll learn later that the workhouse has a strict meal rotation. Some days have slightly better food, most don't. In your normal life, you'd probably be having coffee right now, maybe some toast or cereal, in your bed, all warm and comfortable, scrolling through your phone. Not here. You haven't had coffee in weeks, and your body's still going through caffeine withdrawal on top of everything else. Your head pounds constantly. You force down the gruel, which tastes as bland as it looks, with a faint undertaste of mould from the oats that were stored too long. The bread is dense and sour, but you eat every crumb. You'll need the energy for what comes next. After breakfast, the real purpose of the workhouse begins. Labour. The 1834 Poor Law that created this system was explicitly designed to make workhouse conditions harsh enough that only the truly desperate would accept them. The work is intentionally tedious, exhausting and often pointless, designed to punish more than to produce. Men are assigned to the stone yard, where they'll spend the day breaking large rocks into smaller ones, or to the bone-crushing shed, grinding animal bones into powder for fertilizer, a job so disgusting and dangerous that men occasionally die from bone dust inhalation, or to the oakum picking room, where they'll unravel old ship ropes until their fingers bleed. Women are sent to the laundry to wash endless piles of sheets and clothes in scalding water with harsh lye soap that burns their hands, or to the sewing room to make and repair workhouse uniforms, or to clean the endless corridors and wards of the workhouse itself. Children work too. Victorian workhouses were equal opportunity exploiters. Boys as young as 7 work alongside the men, though at reduced quotas. Girls work with the women. The youngest children, those under 7, are kept in nursery wards under the care of older female inmates who are too infirm for harder labour. You're assigned to the laundry. As you're led there by a stern-faced matron, you pass the men's yard where stone breaking has begun. The sound is deafening. Hundreds of hammers striking stone in a chaotic percussion. The men's faces are already sheened with sweat despite the cold, and their hands are wrapped in rags to prevent blistering. It doesn't help much. You can see blood seeping through many of the wrappings. The laundry is no better. It's a long room filled with steam so thick you can barely see across it. The heat is overwhelming after the cold morning air, and within minutes your uniform is soaked with sweat. Large copper tubs bubble with nearly boiling water, and women stir the contents with wooden paddles longer than they are tall. "New one," shouts your escort, and a red-faced woman in a sweat-drenched uniform approaches. "Ever done laundry before?" she asks, looking you up and down. Before you can answer, she scoffs. "Doesn't matter, you'll learn quick or you'll burn. Start with the sheets." She points to a massive pile of soiled bedding. "Soak, scrub, rinse, wring, hang. Don't stop until the bell." And so begins your first day of workhouse labour. The sheets are heavy, many soiled with human waste or blood or God knows what else. The soap doesn't lather properly in the hard water, so you have to scrub twice as hard. The wooden washboard tears at your knuckles until they're raw. After 2 hours, your back is screaming from being bent over the tub. After 4, your hands are so swollen you can barely grip the paddle, but you don't dare slow down. The supervisor walks the rows with a thin stick, not hesitating to rap the knuckles of any woman she deems to be slacking. "Keep moving," she shouts periodically. "Idle hands do the devil's work." The only breaks are when the bell rings for more sheets to be brought in, or for completed laundry to be taken to the drying yard. During one such moment, you try to catch your breath, leaning against a wall. A woman nearby notices. She's older, with grey streaks in her hair and deep lines etched around her eyes. She glances at the supervisor, who's momentarily distracted, then slides closer to you. "First day's the worst," she says quietly. "The blisters harden into calluses eventually." "How long have you been here?" you ask. 3 years? 4 months? 2 weeks? The precision of her answer is startling. My husband died in a factory accident. No compensation, of course. Couldn't keep up the rent. She glances around again. Word of advice: don't make friends with anyone who coughs, and don't get attached to the children. Most don't last their first winter. Before you can respond, the supervisor's voice cracks across the room. No talking back to work. The woman drifts away, back to her station, and you return to the endless pile of sheets. The work continues until the dinner bell at noon. Another meagre meal, a thin stew with more broth than substance, a small boiled potato and another piece of bread. Then back to work until 6. By the time the supper bell rings, you can barely stand. Your hands are bleeding from a dozen small cuts. Your back feels broken. Your feet are swollen in the ill-fitting boots, but there's no rest yet. Supper is bread and cheese, a small piece of each, and then an hour of moral instruction from the chaplain, who lectures on the virtues of hard work and the sins of idleness while you fight to keep your eyes open. Only then, at 8 o'clock, are you allowed to stumble back to the dormitory. The same hard bed, the same scratchy blanket, the same unwashed bodies packed too close together, but now you're so exhausted you barely notice. As you lie there, your body throbbing with new pains, you hear soft crying from several beds away. A woman who arrived the same day as you just discovered that her 3 children have been sent to different workhouses in neighbouring parishes. She may never see them again. You close your eyes, trying to block out the sound, trying not to think about tomorrow when you'll do this all again, and the next day, and the next. Some people have been here for decades. Some were born here and will die here without ever knowing another life. Just as you're drifting off, a thought jolts you awake. What happened to your family? Where are your children, your spouse, your elderly parents who came to the workhouse with you? No one has told you, and you were too overwhelmed to ask. Tomorrow, you promise yourself. Tomorrow, you'll find out. But deep down, you already know. In the Victorian workhouse, families don't stay together. That bond, like everything else that makes you human, is considered a luxury the poor don't deserve. Unlike your comfortable bed right now, with its soft pillows and warm blankets, this workhouse bed offers no comfort, no rest, only a brief respite before another day of grueling labour. As you finally fall into an exhausted sleep, the workhouse bell is already waiting to wake you for another day of this living nightmare, and this is just the beginning. The workhouse bell shatters your sleep like a hammer through glass. For a brief, blessed moment, you've forgotten where you are. Then reality crashes back. The stench, the scratchy blanket, the hard bed, the coughing and moaning from all around you. Another day in Victorian hell. It's your 4th morning now, just long enough to understand the routine, but not nearly long enough for your body to adjust to the brutality of it. Your hands are a mess of blisters from the laundry work, some broken and oozing. Your back feels like someone took a hot poker to it. And you still haven't found your family. The dormitory stirs to life around you, women coughing, groaning, some crying quietly. The elderly move the slowest, their joints swollen with rheumatism, faces twisted in pain as they force themselves upright. They know the consequences of being late for roll call. Move yourselves. The matron appears in the doorway, her voice like a whip crack. Anyone not present for roll call forfeits breakfast. You've learned this is no idle threat. Yesterday, an elderly woman named Margaret was 2 minutes late. They made her stand in the corner of the dining hall, watching everyone else eat. By dinner, she'd collapsed. They carried her to the infirmary. You haven't seen her since. The floor is ice against your bare feet as you scramble into your uniform. The wool has somehow gotten even itchier, and now it carries the sour smell of your sweat. There's no time to wash. That luxury comes only once a week during the supervised bathing session every Saturday. You follow the stream of women down the dark corridor toward the courtyard. It's still pitch black outside, the January air so cold it burns your lungs. Frost crunches beneath your boots. Above, the stars are knife points in a clear sky, which means today will be even colder than yesterday. From across the yard, you spot a group of men lining up for their own roll call. You scan the faces desperately. Is he there? Your husband? It's been 4 days since you were separated during admission. You've asked about him repeatedly, only to be met with threats of punishment for unnecessary conversation. The men stand with their backs to the rising dawn, breath-forming clouds in the frigid air. They look like ghosts, their faces gaunt, bodies hunched against the cold. Many bear visible injuries, bandaged hands, limping gaits, bruised faces. The work of the stone yard is written on their bodies. Then you see him, standing in the back row, his frame already noticeably thinner. 4 days and the workhouse has begun consuming him. He doesn't see you. You want to call out, to wave, but you know better. Communication between male and female inmates is strictly forbidden. All you can do is stare, drinking in the sight of him until the matron's voice snaps you back to attention. Adams, present. Barrett, present. Collins, present. The roll call drones on. Every morning, the same ritual. Every morning, a few names receive no answer. Died in the night, taken to hospital, released to a relative, ran away. The workhouse population ebbs and flows like a tide, but the building itself remains constant, implacable, devouring the poor of London in endless succession. Your name is called. You answer. For now, you're still here, still alive. Small victories. After roll call comes prayers, led by a chaplain whose faith seems to begin and end with punishing the poor for their poverty. He drones through a reading about the virtues of labour, the sin of idleness, the divine order that placed some in comfort and others in need. Let us thank God for this charitable institution, he intones, which saves the souls of the indigent through honest toil. The woman beside you mutters under her breath, if God made this place, it was on the day he invented hell. You stifle a shocked laugh. Humour is rare in the workhouse, precious as gold. You steal a glance at her, middle-aged, with sharp eyes that haven't yet been dulled by workhouse life. She winks at you. A tiny act of rebellion in this place where individuality is systematically crushed. The prayer ends. Now breakfast. The dining hall is cavernous with high windows that let in anemic winter light. Long wooden tables run the length of the room with backless benches that force you to sit upright. No comfort allowed, not even during meals. The room's design creates a perfect visual representation of the Victorian workhouse system. Men on one side, women on the other, elderly separate from able-bodied, the better-behaved good poor separated from the bad poor, those who've broken rules or been deemed morally suspect. And no sign of children anywhere. They eat in their own dining hall, supervised by the schoolmaster and mistress. Today's breakfast is gruel, a watery porridge that tastes like dishwater, and a chunk of bread. The portion is small enough that you finish it in minutes, your stomach still growling afterward. Around you, people are licking their bowls clean, scraping up every last morsel. The woman who made the joke during prayers sits across from you. She eats with careful precision, breaking her bread into small pieces, making it last. Looking for someone, she asks quietly, noticing your gaze constantly drifting to the men's side. You nod slightly. My husband. She glances over her shoulder, then back to you. Which one? Tall, dark hair, blue workhouse uniform. She snorts. That narrows it down to about 100 men. He has a scar across his right eyebrow. Used to work as a carpenter before. You trail off. Before what? Before everything collapsed, before the factory closed, before the rent doubled, before the fever took your youngest, before. I'll keep an eye out, she says. I'm Ellen, by the way. Thank you, you whisper, surprised by this small kindness. I'm... Silence during meals, bellows a workhouse guard, striding down the aisle between tables. Next person who speaks loses their dinner portion. Ellen rolls her eyes but falls silent. You focus on your gruel, scraping the bowl clean like everyone else. In the workhouse, hunger is constant. You've never experienced anything like it. A gnawing animal thing that sits in your belly day and night. The food they provide is just enough to keep you alive for work, never enough to feel satisfied. After breakfast comes labour assignment. The master stands at the front of the room, reading names and duties from a ledger. It's the moment everyone dreads. Some assignments are merely unpleasant. Kitchen work, cleaning, mending. Others are actively dangerous. The stone yard, the bone-crushing shed, the laundry with its scalding water and caustic soap. Adams, laundry. Barrett, cleaning. Collins, infirmary duty. The list continues. Women file out as their names are called, faces set in resignation. Your name comes. Laundry. Your heart sinks. Another day of steam and scalding water, of hands that will crack and bleed. But you go without complaint. Complaining means punishment, reduced rations, or worse, the refractory ward where troublemakers are locked in solitary confinement. The laundry is already billowing with steam when you arrive, the air thick and wet in your lungs. Massive copper tubs bubble with near-boiling water. Women stand at washboards, their faces red from heat and exertion, hair plastered to their foreheads. The noise is deafening. The slap of wet cloth, the scrubbing of brushes, the occasional cry when someone's skin meets boiling water. Through a small window you can see into the men's yard. The stone breaking has begun. Dozens of men sit in rows, each with a pile of large rocks before them and a hammer in hand. Their job is mind-numbingly simple. Break big rocks into little rocks. The rocks will be used for road construction, though many will simply be broken and then discarded. The labour itself, not the product, is the point. Crack, crack, crack. The sound of hammers striking stone forms a relentless percussion, the backbeat to workhouse life. Every few minutes someone cries out as a shard of stone slices their skin, or a hammer misses its mark and finds flesh instead. Stop gawking and get to work. The laundry supervisor appears beside you, her face mottled with broken capillaries from years in the steam. Those sheets won't wash themselves. You take your place at an empty washboard. The water burns your already blistered hands, but you grit your teeth and begin scrubbing. The sheets are soiled with every bodily fluid imaginable, a catalogue of human misery in stained fabric. Ellen appears at the tub next to yours, arms already plunged into the scalding water. Trick is to move fast, she mutters without looking at you. Don't give your skin time to feel it. You try to follow her advice, working quickly despite the pain. It helps, but only slightly. By mid-morning, your hands are raw, your back aching from being bent over the tub. Sweat pours down your face and neck, soaking your uniform. The air is so thick with steam you can barely see across the room. Through the fog, you notice a young woman at the end of the row swaying on her feet. She's pale, too pale, her eyes unfocused. Before you can react, she crumples to the floor like a puppet with cut strings. The supervisor sighs in irritation. Not again. You, she points at you and Ellen. Get her to the infirmary and be quick about it. Those sheets need finishing before dinner. You help Ellen lift the unconscious woman, her body frighteningly light in your arms. Together you carry her through the winding corridors of the workhouse to the infirmary wing. The smell hits you first, a mixture of carbolic acid, human waste, and something sweet and rotten that you recognize instinctively as the smell of death. The infirmary is a long room lined with iron beds, most occupied. Men, women, and children lie in various states of illness, some coughing blood into rags, others delirious with fever, still others lying ominously still beneath their blankets. One nurse moves between them, her expression harried as she tries to tend to dozens of patients at once. "Another fainter from the laundry," Ellen tells her as you lay the young woman on an empty bed. The nurse barely glances up from changing a bandage. "Put her by the window, she'll come round or she won't." "She's pregnant," Ellen says, her voice low. "About 4 months along, I reckon." Now the nurse looks, her expression softening slightly. "I'll check on her when I can. Get back to work before you're both reported." As you turn to leave, your gaze falls on a small figure in a corner bed, a child, no more than 7, face flushed with fever. Your heart stops. It's your daughter. You rush to the bedside, ignoring Ellen's warning hiss. The child's eyes are closed, her breathing shallow. A crude wooden sign hanging from the bed frame confirms your worst fear. It bears your daughter's name. "What's wrong with her?" you demand, grabbing the nurse's arm as she passes. "What happened?" The nurse pulls away, annoyed. "Came in yesterday with fever, probably measles. Half the children's ward has it." "Why wasn't I told?" Your voice rises, drawing stares from those patients well enough to notice. "Not my job to track down relatives," the nurse snaps. "Now get back to work before I call the master." Ellen appears at your side, her hand firm on your arm. "Come on," she murmurs. "Making a scene won't help her. We'll come back after dinner." You allow yourself to be pulled away, casting one last glance at your daughter's feverish face. How did this happen so quickly? She was healthy when you arrived, but then you remember the children's dormitories, dozens packed into a space meant for half that number, sleeping 4 or 5 to a bed, illness spreading like wildfire. The walk back to the laundry passes in a blur. Your mind is consumed with worry. Measles can kill, especially in a place like this where nutrition is poor and medical care barely exists. You've already lost one child to illness. The thought of losing another is unbearable. "She'll be all right," Ellen says, reading your thoughts. "Children are tougher than they look. Have you..." You hesitate. "Do you have children here?" Ellen's face hardens. "Had 2. Boy and a girl. Boy died his first winter here. Chest infection. Girl was sent out as a scullery maid to a house in Kensington. Haven't seen her in 3 years." You want to offer comfort, but what can you say? In the workhouse, tragedy isn't the exception. It's the rule. Everyone has lost someone. Everyone is losing themselves, piece by piece. Back in the laundry, the work continues as if nothing has happened. The woman who fainted has been forgotten, her washboard already occupied by someone else. You take up your position, hands screaming as they hit the water again. The work is mind-numbing in its repetition. Soak, scrub, rinse, wring, hang. Over and over, for hours that stretch like years. The only markers of time are the workhouse bells, calling for meal breaks, shift changes, prayers. As you work, Ellen tells you about workhouse life in murmured snippets between the supervisor's rounds. "Stoneyard's the worst job for men," she says as she wrings out a sheet with practiced efficiency. "Breaks their hands, then their spirits. Bone crushing's almost as bad. The dust gets in their lungs. Oakum picking's easiest if your hands can stand it." Oakum picking, she explains, involves unravelling old ship ropes into individual fibres which are then used to caulk the seams of ships. It sounds simple until she describes the ropes, tar-soaked, tough as iron, requiring hours of work with bare hands that soon become raw and bleeding. For women, laundry's hardest but pays best in extra food, Ellen continues. Kitchen work's coveted, warmer, and you can sometimes sneak scraps. Avoid the sewing room, you'll go blind squinting at stitches all day. How long have you been here? You ask during a moment when the supervisor's back is turned. 2 years, 3 months, and 17 days. Like the woman in section 1, she knows the exact count. Husband died in a dockyard accident. No family to take me in. She glances at you. You? 4 days, you say, the number pathetically small compared to her years. She snorts. Still fresh, then. Still thinking you'll get out soon. Won't I? Ellen's laugh is bitter. Look around. How many people here look like they're just passing through? Once the workhouse gets its hooks in you, it doesn't let go easy. Your clothes wear out, your connections to the outside fade, your skills become useless, and then where would you go? The truth of her words settles like a stone in your stomach. You hadn't thought beyond immediate survival, but she's right. Every day in this place pushes the outside world further away. The dinner bell rings at noon, a blessed relief from the steam and heat. The meal is marginally better than breakfast, a thin stew with a few floating vegetables, a small piece of gristly meat and another chunk of bread, still barely enough to quiet the constant hunger. But you devour it gratefully. As you eat, you scan the men's side of the dining hall again, looking for your husband. This time, you spot him, sitting 3 tables away. He looks exhausted, his face drawn, a bandage wrapped around one hand. Stone yard injury, no doubt. He doesn't see you, his gaze fixed on his bowl as he mechanically spoons food into his mouth. That him? Ellen asks, following your gaze. The one with the bandaged hand and eyebrow scar? You nod, your throat too tight for words. Or Sunday, she says. Visiting hour after chapel. You can talk to him then, if you're both still here. Sunday, 4 days away. It seems an eternity. After dinner comes the afternoon shift. More laundry, more pain, more mind-numbing repetition. By the time the supper bell rings at 6, you're swaying on your feet with exhaustion. Your hands are bleeding freely now, leaving rust-coloured stains on the last sheets you hung. Supper is bread and cheese again, the portions miserly. Then comes the evening roll call, checking that no one has escaped during the day, as if anyone had the energy to run. Following roll call is an hour of moral instruction. Tonight, a lecture from the chaplain on the sins of sloth and the virtue of industry. The irony is thick enough to cut with a knife. No one in this room has been allowed to be idle for a single moment since dawn. Yet here they sit, being lectured on the evils of laziness by a man who has never broken a stone or washed a sheet in his life. Your mind drifts to your daughter, lying feverish in the infirmary, to your husband, his hands breaking like the stones he crushes, to your son. Where is he? You haven't caught a glimpse of him since admission, in the boys' ward presumably, but that could mean anywhere in this labyrinthine building. The chaplain drones on, his words washing over you without meaning. Around you, some inmates doze despite the hard benches, exhaustion overcoming even their fear of punishment. Others stare blankly ahead, their minds escaped to some private refuge, even as their bodies remain trapped. Finally, mercifully, the day ends. 8 o'clock and you're released to the dormitory. The same hard bed, the same scratchy blanket, the same stench and sounds of misery. As you lie down, every muscle in your body screaming, Ellen takes the bed next to yours. First rule of survival, she whispers. Don't think too far ahead. 1 day at a time, 1 hour at a time, if that's all you can manage. My daughter, you murmur, tears threatening. I need to help her. We'll check on her tomorrow, Ellen promises. I know one of the night nurses. She'll look in on the girl, make sure she gets water at least. This small kindness breaks something in you. After holding yourself together all day, you finally let the tears come, turning your face into the thin pillow to muffle the sound. Ellen's hand finds yours in the darkness, a brief squeeze of solidarity. "Sleep," she says. "Tomorrow's another day of the same." And it will be. That's the true horror of the workhouse, not just the conditions, though they're brutal enough, but the relentless sameness, day after identical day, stretching ahead like a prison sentence of indeterminate length. The same bells, the same gruel, the same back-breaking labour, the same prayers telling you it's all for your own good. You close your eyes, trying to find escape in sleep. Unlike your comfortable bed right now, with its soft pillows and warm blankets, this workhouse bed offers no real rest, only unconsciousness, a temporary reprieve from reality. Tomorrow, you'll see your daughter. You'll try to find your son. You'll catch another glimpse of your husband across the dining hall, small moments to cling to in a place designed to strip away everything that makes you human. As you drift towards sleep, the last thing you hear is the hacking cough of the woman in the next bed. Consumption, probably, and she's sleeping 3 feet away from you. Welcome to another night in the Victorian workhouse, where poverty is treated as a moral failing and those who suffer it are punished accordingly, where families are torn apart, health is destroyed and dignity is stripped away, all in the name of Christian charity. And still, somehow, you must find the strength to wake up tomorrow and do it all again. Morning comes too soon, as always. The bell, the rush, the roll call in the freezing yard, the inadequate breakfast. But today, you have a purpose beyond mere survival. Your daughter is sick in the infirmary and somehow you're going to see her, but the workhouse has other plans. You, the matron points at you during labour assignments. Kitchen duty today. Kitchen duty. Under other circumstances, this would be cause for celebration. The kitchen is warm. The work, while hard, doesn't leave your hands bleeding. And there's always the possibility of extra food. A potato peel, a crust of bread, something to ease the constant hunger. But today, kitchen duty means you're on the opposite side of the workhouse from the infirmary. "Please," you say, the word escaping before you can stop yourself. "My daughter's sick. I need to..." Need? The matron's eyebrows shoot up, her face hardening. "You need to do as you're told. Kitchen, now." Ellen, lined up beside you, gives a tiny shake of her head. "Don't push it," her eyes warn. You swallow your protest and follow the other women assigned to kitchen work, your heart heavy with worry. The kitchen is indeed warm, almost unbearably so after the frigid morning air. Massive cast-iron stoves radiate heat, their surfaces glowing dull red in places. Enormous pots bubble with the day's meals, porridge for breakfast, stew for dinner, more porridge for supper. The smell should be appetizing, but the food is so bland, so devoid of seasoning or fat that it barely registers as food at all. The head cook is a mountain of a woman named Mrs. Hodges, her face perpetually flushed from the heat. She assigns you to vegetable preparation, peeling potatoes and chopping the few winter vegetables available. It's mindless work, but at least you're sitting down, your hands occupied with something other than scalding water and caustic soap. As you work, you study the kitchen's layout. There must be a way to slip away, even for a few minutes, to check on your daughter. But the kitchen is tightly run. Mrs. Hodges watches everything with the eyes of a hawk, and the doors are guarded by a male porter whose job is as much to keep inmates in as to keep unauthorized people out. The woman beside you, peeling potatoes with practiced efficiency, notices your distraction. She's older, perhaps 50, with hands so gnarled by work they barely look human anymore. "First time in the kitchen?" she asks quietly, her knife never stopping its rhythmic scrape against the potato skin. You nod. Best assignment in the house, she continues, if you're smart about it. She glances at Mrs. Hodges, then quickly palms a small potato, slipping it into her pocket in a motion so smooth you almost miss it. Evening shift. She naps for 20 minutes after the dinner service. That's when you can slip away if you need to. Before you can thank her, there's a commotion at the kitchen door. 2 workhouse guards enter, half carrying a man between them. Even from across the room, you can see he's desperately ill, his face grey, body trembling violently. Got a sick one from the stone yard, one guard announces to Mrs. Hodges. Master says he's to wait here till the doctor comes for inspection. Mrs. Hodges scowls. This is a kitchen, not an infirmary. We're preparing food here. Master's orders, the guard says with a shrug, depositing the sick man on a bench near the door. Just keep him out of the way. They leave, and Mrs. Hodges returns to overseeing the bread cutting, pointedly ignoring the sick man. You study him from the corner of your eye. He's young, perhaps 20, with the raw-boned look of someone who was thin even before the workhouse began starving him. His breath comes in short gasps, and he clutches his side as if in terrible pain. No one approaches him. No one offers water or comfort. He simply sits, suffering alone in a room full of people. What's wrong with him? You whisper to the potato woman. She barely glances up. Pneumonia, I'd guess, or pleurisy. Stone yard dust gets in the lungs. Kills a dozen men every winter. As if confirming her diagnosis, the man begins to cough, a wet, racking sound that shakes his entire body. When he pulls his hand away from his mouth, it's speckled with blood. You can't bear it. Setting down your knife, you cross to the water barrel, fill a cup, and bring it to the sick man. He looks up at you with feverish, unfocused eyes. Drink, you say, holding the cup to his lips. He does, water dribbling down his chin as he swallows desperately. When the cup is empty, he grabs your wrist with surprising strength. "Thank you," he whispers, his voice a harsh rasp. "God bless you." "What do you think you're doing?" Mrs. Hodges's voice cuts across the kitchen. "Get back to your station." You return to your potatoes, face burning with a mixture of shame and defiance. What has this place done to you that a simple act of human kindness feels like rebellion? The sick man remains on his bench, ignored by everyone, except when his coughing becomes too loud, earning him glares from the kitchen staff. Hour after hour passes, and still no doctor comes. By mid-morning, he's slumped against the wall, his breathing laboured, eyes closed. "Shouldn't someone check on him?" you ask the potato woman. She shrugs. Doctor comes when he comes, usually afternoons, if at all. But he could die waiting. Another shrug. "People die here all the time, love. One more won't make the papers." The casual acceptance of death chills you more than the January air. Is this what awaits everyone here? To die alone on a bench, waiting for help that comes too late, mourned by no one? The dinner preparation continues around the dying man, as if he's invisible. Potatoes are boiled, a small amount of tough, gristly meat is cut into hundreds of tiny pieces to create the illusion of substance in the stew. Bread is sliced with mathematical precision, each inmate's portion exactly the same meagre amount. Around 11, the kitchen door opens again. This time, it's a group of children being led by a stern-faced schoolmistress. They're coming to collect the mid-morning meal for the children's ward. A thin gruel and a small piece of bread for each child. Your heart leaps. Your son might be among them. The children file in, eyes downcast, moving with the unnatural quietness of the thoroughly disciplined. They range in age from about 5 to 12, boys and girls alike dressed in miniature versions of the workhouse uniform, their faces pale from lack of sunlight, bodies thin from inadequate food. You scan their faces desperately. Then, there he is, your son, standing in the middle of the line, so changed after just 5 days that you almost didn't recognize him. His hair has been cut brutally short, his clothes hang on his frame, and there's a dullness in his eyes that wasn't there before. James, you whisper, your voice catching. His head snaps up, eyes widening as he spots you. His mouth forms your name, though no sound comes out. The schoolmistress is watching. You want to run to him, to wrap your arms around him and never let go. But you know what would happen. You'd be punished. Reduced rations, perhaps the refractory cell, and he would suffer for it too. So you stay where you are, trying to pour all your love into a single look. He stares back, his eyes filling with tears that he blinks away quickly. Children who cry are punished in the workhouse. The line moves forward. As James passes your station, you manage to slip a small peeled potato into his hand, the one you were saving for yourself. His fingers close around it, and he pockets it in a motion that speaks of practice. 5 days, and he's already learned to steal and hide food. Then he's gone, following the other children out the door, and you're left with the ache of a too brief connection. "Your boy?" the potato woman asks quietly. You nod, not trusting your voice. "Looks healthy enough," she says, which passes for high praise in the workhouse. They're working them in the wood yard now, light stuff, sorting kindling, bundling sticks, better than the factory work they used to make them do. You try to take comfort in this. At least he's not being sent down mines or made to clean factory machinery, jobs that killed or maimed thousands of children before child labour laws began to improve. Small mercies. The sick man by the door has gone quiet, his coughing ceased. For a moment you think he's sleeping, then you notice the unnatural stillness of his chest, the fixed stare of his eyes. "Mrs. Hodges," you call, your voice tight. "The man, I think he's—" She glances over, sighs heavily, and sends a kitchen boy to fetch the workhouse porter. 10 minutes later, 2 men arrive with a stretcher. They load the body with practiced efficiency. Clearly, this is a regular occurrence, and carry it away without ceremony. No one says a prayer, no one marks his passing in any way. The kitchen work continues as if nothing has happened. Only the empty bench by the door gives any indication that a human being has just died, alone and untended, while everyone around him chopped vegetables and kneaded dough. "What was his name?" you asked the potato woman. "Did anyone know?" She shakes her head. "Just another poor bastard. There'll be another taking his place tomorrow." The casual cruelty of the workhouse system has never been clearer. It's not just the physical hardships, the inadequate food, the backbreaking labour, the crowded conditions. It's the systematic stripping away of humanity. Names replaced by numbers, family bonds severed, natural compassion punished, death reduced to an inconvenience requiring a stretcher. Dinner preparation continues. You're assigned to serving duty, standing behind enormous pots with a ladle, doling out the exact same portion to each inmate as they file past with their bowls. It's soul-crushing work, seeing the hunger in hundreds of eyes, knowing the food you're giving them isn't enough, yet being unable to offer more. Some try to game the system, holding their bowls at an angle to make the portion look smaller, hoping for more. Others simply stare at you with dead eyes, already knowing the routine too well to hope. The elderly tremble so badly that half their portion slops over the side before they reach their seats. The children, God, the children, hold up their bowls with both hands like an offering or a prayer. Through the serving line, you see your husband. He looks worse than yesterday, face gaunt, eyes sunken. The stone yard is killing him by inches. He recognizes you, a brief flare of life in his exhausted face. You manage to give him a slightly larger portion, but it's still nowhere near enough to sustain a man doing heavy labor for 12 hours a day. After the dinner service comes your own meal break, 20 minutes to eat the same stew you've been serving, sitting in a corner of the kitchen while the next shift begins cleaning up. The stew is thin and bland, the meat tough, the vegetables few and far between. but it's hot, and there's slightly more of it than what's served in the dining hall, one of the small perks of kitchen duty. As you eat, your mind returns to your daughter. Is she still feverish? Has anyone given her water? Is she calling for you, wondering why you haven't come? The potato woman's words echo in your mind. Evening shift. She naps for 20 minutes after the dinner service. You finish your stew and return to work, counting the hours until you might have a chance to slip away. The afternoon drags. More vegetables to prepare for supper, endless pots to scrub, floors to mop. Your back aches, your feet throb in the ill-fitting workhouse boots, but you push through, driven by the need to see your child. Finally, dinner service ends. The inmates return to their labour assignments for the afternoon shift. The kitchen staff begins the supper preparation, and Mrs. Hodges, true to prediction, settles into a chair in the corner, her chin dropping to her chest as exhaustion claims her. Now's your chance. You catch the potato woman's eye. She nods slightly, then deliberately knocks over a sack of onions, creating a diversion. In the commotion, you slip through the kitchen door and into the corridor beyond. The workhouse is a maze of identical hallways, designed to be confusing to prevent inmates from wandering. But you've been paying attention, mentally mapping the building during your few journeys between dormitory, dining hall, and work assignments. You move quickly, heart pounding, expecting at any moment to hear a shout, to feel a hand on your shoulder. Being caught out of your assigned area means punishment. Reduced rations at best, the refractory cell at worst. Left turn, right turn, past the laundry where women still toil in clouds of steam, down a long corridor lined with administrative offices, around another corner, and finally the infirmary wing. The smell hits you first, that same mixture of carbolic acid, human waste, and decay. The long room is quieter now than during your brief visit yesterday. It's rest period, and many patients lie with their eyes closed, though whether in sleep or unconsciousness, it's hard to tell. A single nurse moves between the beds, checking bandages, administering medicine from a small cart. She's different from yesterday, younger with a less harried expression. Perhaps Ellen's friend, the one who promised to check on your daughter. You slip into the room, trying to appear as if you have a right to be there. The nurse glances up, frowning slightly, but doesn't immediately challenge you. Taking advantage of her hesitation, you move quickly to the corner where you last saw your daughter. The bed is empty. Panic rises in your throat. Where is she? Has she been moved? Or worse, no, you can't think that. Won't think that. "Excuse me," you say to the nurse, your voice barely above a whisper. "My daughter, she was in that bed yesterday. Fever, possible measles." The nurse studies you for a moment, then recognition dawns. You're the mother from the laundry. She glances around, making sure no supervisors are within earshot. "She's been moved to the children's infirmary. Her fever broke this morning. Relief makes your knees weak." "She's better? Can I see her?" The nurse hesitates. "It's against regulations, but..." She sighs, makes a decision. "Follow me, quickly. I need to deliver medicine there anyway." You follow her through a side door, down another corridor, and into a smaller ward. This one contains only children, perhaps 20 beds, most occupied. The air is thick with the sounds of coughing, occasional crying, and the restless shifting of small bodies in pain. And there, in a bed by the window, is your daughter. She's asleep, her face still flushed but no longer burning with the terrible heat of high fever. Her breathing is even, her expression peaceful for the first time since you entered this place. You rush to her side, dropping to your knees beside the bed, taking her small hand in yours. It's warm, but not hot. The fever truly has broken. "She's over the worst," the nurse says quietly, checking the chart hanging from the bed frame. "Another day or two, she'll be back in the children's ward." "Thank you," you whisper, tears of relief spilling down your cheeks. Thank you for caring for her. The nurse's expression softens. I do what I can. It's not enough, but she shrugs, the gesture encompassing all the inadequacies of workhouse medical care. You shouldn't stay long. If the matron finds you here, just a few minutes, you plead. Please. She nods. I'll be back in 5 minutes. Be gone by then. She moves away to tend to the other children, leaving you alone with your daughter. You stroke her hair, now cropped short like her brother's, a measure against lice, but still a shock to see. Her cheeks are thinner after just 5 days of workhouse food. There's a small cut on her chin that wasn't there before, but she's alive. She's healing. I'm here, my love, you whisper, though she can't hear you. Mama's here. You're going to be all right. It's a promise you have no right to make. In the workhouse, no one is truly all right. But in this moment, with her hand in yours, it feels possible to believe it anyway. 5 minutes pass too quickly. The nurse returns, giving you a pointed look. It's time to go. You press a kiss to your daughter's forehead, then reluctantly release her hand. I'll come back, you whisper, another promise you may not be able to keep. The journey back to the kitchen is a blur of corridors and anxiety. What if Mrs. Hodges has noticed your absence? What if she's already reported you to the master? But luck is with you, for once. You slip back into the kitchen just as the supper preparation reaches its chaotic peak. Mrs. Hodges is fully awake now, shouting orders as bread is sliced and porridge stirred in massive pots. No one seems to have noticed you were gone. The potato woman catches your eye, raises an eyebrow in question. You give her a small nod, mission accomplished. She nods back, the ghost of a smile crossing her face before she returns to her work. Supper service proceeds much like dinner, the same assembly line of hunger, the same inadequate portions, the same desperate eyes looking up at you as you ladle out porridge, but this time you don't see your husband or son in the line. Perhaps they're eating in shifts, or in a different dining hall altogether. After the inmates are fed comes the staff meal, slightly better fare for the workhouse employees, though still plain by outside standards. You and the other kitchen workers are given bowls of the same porridge you've been serving, though with a bit of sugar added, a luxury the inmates can only dream of. As you eat, the day's events catch up with you. The shock of seeing a man die untended, the brief, painful glimpse of your son, the relief of finding your daughter on the mend. It's all too much, and suddenly you're fighting back tears, staring into your bowl to hide your face. First, death, the potato woman asks quietly, sitting beside you. You nod, not trusting your voice. Gets easier, she says, though her tone suggests it doesn't. Not really. Been here 3 years, seen hundreds go. Winter's worst, cold takes the old ones, fever takes the little ones, chest complaints take the men from the yard. How do you bear it, you ask, the question escaping before you can stop it. She's silent for a long moment, spooning porridge methodically into her mouth. Finally, she says, you either break or you don't. There's no trick to it. After supper comes the evening roll call, then the nightly lecture on morality and proper behaviour. Tonight it's delivered by the workhouse master himself, a tall, cadaverous man with side whiskers and cold eyes. He drones on about cleanliness, obedience and gratitude. This last directed pointedly at a group of new arrivals huddled at the back of the room, their faces still showing shock at their changed circumstances. You barely hear him. Your mind is with your children, your daughter in her infirmary bed, your son somewhere in the boys' ward, and with your husband, his body breaking under the strain of the stone yard. How long can any of you survive in this place? Ellen finds you after the lecture as you're filing back to the dormitory. Heard you had kitchen duty, she says. Lucky bastard. How were the pickings? You realise you forgot to steal any food for yourself, too preoccupied with your family to think of your own needs. Another day of gnawing hunger awaits. Saw my daughter, you tell her instead. In the infirmary, her fever broke. Ellen's face shows genuine relief. Good. That's good. Children are always the hardest part of this place. She hesitates. Listen, I've been asking around about your husband. Word is he's not doing well in the stone yard, hands infected from a cut. Your stomach clenches with fear. Infections kill in the workhouse. The lack of proper medical care, the overcrowding, the poor nutrition all combine to turn minor wounds deadly. Can I see him before Sunday? Ellen shakes her head. Not unless you want to risk the refractory cell. But I know someone who works in the men's infirmary. If he ends up there, I'll get word to you. It's cold comfort, but it's something. In the workhouse, you learn to be grateful for the smallest mercies. Back in the dormitory, exhaustion claims you almost as soon as you lie down. The day has drained you, physically, emotionally, spiritually. Your hands throb from kitchen work, different but no less painful than laundry duty. Your back aches from standing. Your feet feel swollen in their workhouse boots. But your daughter's fever has broken, your son is alive if changed, and tomorrow brings another chance to see them, to ensure they're safe, to remind them they're loved despite this place that tries to sever all family bonds. One day at a time, as Ellen said. 1 hour at a time, if that's all you can manage. You close your eyes, seeking the temporary escape of sleep. Around you, the dormitory settles into its nighttime rhythm of coughing, crying, and the occasional muffled conversation. Someone a few beds down is praying in a whispered litany. Someone else is softly singing a lullaby, perhaps to herself, perhaps to a child she can no longer hold. This is the Victorian workhouse at night, a holding pen for the poor, the sick, the unfortunate, a place where death stalks the corridors as freely as the night porters, a system designed to punish poverty as if it were a moral failing rather than a circumstance. And somehow, despite everything, people survive. They form connections, they smuggle food, they share information, they risk punishment to check on their children, they offer water to the dying, small acts of humanity in a place designed to crush it. As you drift towards sleep, you wonder what tomorrow will bring. More of the same, most likely. The bell, the roll call, the inadequate food, the endless work, but also perhaps another glimpse of your children, another opportunity to ensure they know they're not forgotten. Unlike your comfortable bed now, with its soft pillows and warm blankets, this workhouse bed offers no true rest. But tonight, at least, you have something the workhouse hasn't yet managed to take from you. Hope. Small, fragile, but present. Your daughter is healing. Tomorrow is another day, and in this place, that's all anyone can ask for. It's been 2 weeks now. 2 weeks of waking to the workhouse bell, 2 weeks of gruel and hard labour, 2 weeks of separation from your family, with only brief glimpses across dining halls or during Sunday visiting hours, and yet somehow you're adapting. That's the terrifying part. The human capacity to normalise almost anything. The way your body has begun to anticipate the bell before it rings. The way your hands have formed calluses over the worst blisters. The way the constant hunger has become a familiar companion rather than acute distress. You're learning the unwritten rules of workhouse survival. Pocket your bread at breakfast, Ellen advised on your 3rd day. Save it for mid-morning when the hunger's worst. Never get between a man and the fire in the workroom, the potato woman warned. They'll fight for that warmth like animals. If you feel a fever coming, hide it as long as you can, counselled a woman who'd been here 5 years. Once you're in the infirmary, they never quite let you back to full rations. Little tricks and strategies passed from inmate to inmate like precious heirlooms. The workhouse doesn't care if you survive, but the people inside it have built their own support systems, invisible to the authorities but vital to endurance. This morning, you're back in the laundry after a week of kitchen duty. Your hands, which had just begun to heal, are raw again within an hour. The scalding water, the harsh soap, the constant scrubbing, it's as if the past week never happened. Ellen works beside you, her movements efficient from long practice. She's become something like a friend, though friendship in the workhouse is a tenuous thing. Everyone is too focused on their own survival to form deep bonds, and yet small alliances are essential. "Heard about your husband?" she says quietly, glancing to ensure the supervisor isn't nearby. "Hands healing. They've moved him to oakum picking until it's better." Relief floods through you. Oakum picking, while hard on the hands, is less physically demanding than the stone yard. Perhaps he'll have a chance to regain some strength. "And my son, have you heard anything?" Ellen shakes her head. Boys' ward is harder to get news from, but no sick children reported this week, so that's something. "It's not much, but it's better than nothing. Your daughter has recovered from her fever and returned to the girls' ward. You were able to see her briefly during Sunday visiting hours 3 days ago, a precious half hour where families are allowed to sit together in the dining hall under strict supervision. No touching permitted, but at least you could see her face, hear her voice, assure her that you're still here, still fighting. Your son wasn't brought to visiting hours." "Working detail," the supervisor said dismissively when you asked. "Working on Sunday, a violation of even the workhouse's principles, which claim to observe the Christian day of rest, but you've learned not to protest. It only makes things worse." "What about you?" Ellen asks. "How's the cough?" You've been trying to hide it, but of course Ellen has noticed. A persistent tickle in your throat that's getting worse, not better. At night, you muffle the sound in your blanket, terrified of being sent to the infirmary. The infirmary means no work, which means reduced rations, which means weakening further. It's a cycle many never escape. "It's nothing," you say. "Dust from the laundry." Ellen gives you a look that says she doesn't believe you but won't push. She reaches into her pocket and presses something into your hand, a small bundle wrapped in cloth. From the kitchen, eat it when no one's looking. You slip the bundle into your own pocket without checking its contents. Food smuggling is a serious offence, punishable by days in the refractory cell, but it's also one of the most common acts of resistance and mutual aid in the workhouse. Those on kitchen duty steal what they can, sharing with friends or trading for other favours. Later, in a moment when the supervisor's back is turned, you unwrap the bundle. Inside is a thick crust of bread, a small piece of cheese, and, miracle of miracles, a pat of butter. Your mouth waters at the sight. Butter is never served to regular inmates, only to staff and the infirm. You break off a small piece, just enough to ease the worst hunger, and re-wrap the rest. This is too precious to consume all at once. It needs to last. The day grinds on. Wash, scrub, rinse, wring, hang. The same motions repeated hundreds of times until your body performs them automatically while your mind drifts elsewhere. It's a strange blessing, this capacity to be physically present while mentally absent. A small escape within the confines of the workhouse walls. Around mid-morning, the laundry supervisor makes an announcement that breaks the monotony. "New assignments coming," she says, reading from a slip of paper. "Infirmary needs additional cleaning staff due to the fever outbreak. 3 women from this detail to be reassigned starting tomorrow." A fever outbreak. Your heart sinks. Winter is peak season for typhus, typhoid, influenza, all killers in the overcrowded conditions of the workhouse, and with your children already weakened by inadequate food and poor conditions. But the reassignment could be an opportunity. Infirmary duty would mean access to your children if they fall ill again. It would mean slightly less physically demanding work. It might even mean slightly better food, as infirmary workers sometimes receive the same enhanced rations as patients to prevent them from succumbing to the very diseases they're exposed to. Ellen is thinking the same thing. "Volunteer," she whispers. "Claim you've had typhus as a child. Say you're immune." When the supervisor asks for volunteers, your hand goes up along with several others. Desperation makes people brave. Everyone is looking for any change that might represent an improvement, however slight. The supervisor looks over the volunteers with a critical eye. You, and her gaze falls on you. You report to the infirmary wing after dinner. Matron will assign your duties. Ellen squeezes your arm in silent congratulation. It's a small victory, but in the workhouse, small victories are all you get. After the grueling laundry shift comes dinner, a thin stew that's mostly water and root vegetables with a few shreds of meat floating forlornly on the surface. You eat every drop, then use your bread to wipe the bowl clean. No food is wasted here. Your husband isn't in the dining hall today. Worry gnaws at you. Has his hand worsened? Is he in the infirmary after all? Or just eating in a different shift? There's no way to know until Sunday visiting hours, still 4 days away. After dinner, you report to the infirmary wing as instructed. The smell hits you immediately. That distinctive mixture of carbolic acid, unwashed bodies, and sickness. But there's something else too. Something worse. The sweet sour odor of infected wounds. The unmistakable stench of gangrene. The infirmary matron is a stern-faced woman named Mrs. Blackett, her greying hair pulled back so tightly it seems to stretch her skin. She looks you and the other 2 volunteers over with the same assessing gaze one might use for livestock at auction. Ever worked with the sick before? She asks. None of you have, at least not professionally, but as women, all of you have nursed family members through illness. It's the unpaid, unrecognised work that falls to your sex by default. I nursed my husband through typhus, one woman offers, and my children through measles and whooping cough. Mrs. Blackett nods curtly. Good enough. You'll learn the rest. Main ward needs scrubbing. Floors, walls, bed frames, chamber pots need emptying. Bedding needs changing. Patients need washing. Work starts at dawn tomorrow. For now, you'll help with the evening medications. She leads you through the main ward, a long room with beds lining both walls, everyone occupied. The patients are a cross-section of workhouse society. Elderly men and women, younger adults, even a few children, all share the same gaunt faces, the same sunken eyes, the same air of abandonment. Some lie ominously still, others thrash in fever. A few sit up, watching your progress with dull interest. Any break in the monotony is welcome, even the arrival of new cleaning staff. Fever cases at the far end, Mrs. Blackett explains, gesturing to a section where the beds are spaced slightly further apart. Wounds and injuries near the door for easier access, chronic cases and the dying in the middle. She says this last part without any change in tone. The dying. As if she's pointing out a storage cupboard or a washing station. In the workhouse, death is simply another administrative category. Your duties for the evening are simple but unpleasant. You help distribute medicines, mostly laudanum for pain, fever powders for the ill, and various foul-smelling poultices for wounds. You assist patients who can't feed themselves, spooning thin gruel into mouths that sometimes seem too weak to swallow. You empty chamber pots, trying not to gag at the smell and the sight of bloody discharge, yellow bile, black tarry stool, all signs of the various diseases consuming these people. As you work, you study the patients surreptitiously, looking for your husband. He's not here, at least not in the main ward. Relief mingles with continued worry. Where is he? One elderly man grabs your wrist as you adjust his blanket. His grip is surprisingly strong for someone so wasted by illness. "You're new," he says, his voice a dry whisper, fresh from outside. You nod, unsure what he wants. "What month is it?" he asks. "They won't tell us. Cover the windows when it snows so we don't know." This can't be true, can it? But looking around, you realize the windows are indeed covered with heavy paper, letting in light but preventing patients from seeing out. Another small cruelty in a place built on such things. January, you tell him. Middle of January. He closes his eyes briefly. Thank you. Been in here since November. Feels like years. He releases your wrist. Watch yourself on the night shift. Porter gets handsy with the new girls. You thank him for the warning and move on to the next bed. Throughout the evening, you receive similar, small pieces of advice from patients lucid enough to offer them. Don't use the rags in the red bucket. Those are for the typhus cases. If Blackett asks you to help with leachings, say you faint at the sight of blood. Trust me, the bread they bring at night, check it for mould. They think we're too sick to notice. It's another form of the Workhouse mutual aid system. These patients may be weak in body, but they still participate in the network of shared knowledge that helps newcomers survive. The work is exhausting, but different from the laundry's physical strain. Here, the exhaustion is as much emotional as physical. The constant exposure to suffering, the knowledge that many of these people will die despite, or sometimes because of, the care they receive. By the end of your shift, your back aches from bending over beds, your arms are sore from lifting patients, and your spirit feels bruised from witnessing so much misery. But you've learned the layout of the infirmary, noted which nurses seem kinder than others, and confirmed that your husband isn't among the patients. All useful information for survival. As you're preparing to leave, Mrs. Blackett calls you into her small office, really just a closet with a desk, but it offers the precious commodity of privacy. You're the one with the children here, aren't you? She asks, consulting a ledger. Girl recovering from measles, boy in the youth ward. Surprised, you nod. You didn't realize the staff tracked such things. Girls doing well enough. Boy's been assigned to the boot repair shop as of yesterday, better than the woodyard, indoors at least. She looks up at you, her face unreadable. I'm telling you this because I need my cleaning staff focused on their work, not distracted by worry. You'll be assigned to the children's ward tomorrow. You can see for yourself then. It's an unexpected kindness, all the more startling for coming from someone whose manner is so brusque. You stammer out thanks. Mrs. Blackett waves it away. Don't mistake me. I follow the rules, but I've buried 4 children of my own, so I know something of a mother's worry. Her expression hardens again. This conversation never happened. Dismissed. You return to the women's dormitory, your mind reeling from this interaction. It's a reminder that even in the workhouse, humanity occasionally breaks through the institutional cruelty. The people enforcing the system are still people with their own histories, their own sorrows. Ellen is waiting up for you, eager for news from the infirmary. You fill her in on the fever outbreak. Typhus primarily with some cases of influenza, and your new assignment to the children's ward. Lucky, she says, with genuine pleasure for your small piece of good fortune. You'll be able to see your girl every day. And Mrs. Blackett said my boy's been moved to the boot repair shop, you add, still surprised by this intelligence. Ellen nods approvingly. Good assignment, skilled work. They sometimes apprentice boys from there to real cobblers outside. Could be his ticket out. The thought both warms and chills you. Out of the workhouse would be a blessing for your son, but out of the workhouse likely means out of your life. Apprentices rarely see their families, becoming essentially the property of their masters until they come of age. Still, it would be a future, a chance, more than many workhouse children get. As you settle into your hard bed, you realize you've made it through another day, another small victory, and tomorrow brings the promise of seeing your daughter, of knowing she's safe, of perhaps even being able to offer her some small comfort as you go about your cleaning duties. You close your eyes, feeling the ever-present hunger, the bone-deep exhaustion, the worry that never quite leaves, but also feeling something else, a growing determination. You will survive this place. You will keep your family alive. You will find a way out eventually. Sleep comes quickly, as it always does after a day of labor, but tonight, for the first time since entering the workhouse, your dreams aren't filled with fear. Instead, you dream of your home as it was before, small and humble, but yours. Your children playing, your husband building a chair at his workbench, simple things that now seem like impossible luxury. Morning arrives too soon. The bell, the rush, the roll call. But today, you're headed to the children's ward instead of the laundry. It's still work, hard, unpleasant work, but it's a change. And change, in the stagnant routine of the workhouse, is something to be grateful for. The children's ward is a long room much like the adult dormitories, but with smaller beds packed even more tightly together. The smell is different, less of adult sweat and sickness, more of the distinctive scent of many unwashed children in close proximity. There's also more noise. Despite the strict discipline, children find ways to whisper, to play small, silent games with fingers and facial expressions, to exist as children even in this joyless place. Your daughter is easy to spot, her face lighting up when she sees you enter with the cleaning cart. She's sitting on her bed, mending a torn sheet. Even the smallest children are kept constantly occupied with work. You give her a small nod, not daring more with the ward mistress watching. As you begin scrubbing the floor, starting at the far end from where your daughter sits, you observe the children surreptitiously. They range in age from about 3 to 12, girls only in this particular ward. Some look relatively healthy, others worryingly thin. All wear identical workhouse uniforms, their hair cut short in the same utilitarian style. They're supposed to be working, sewing, mending, picking oakum, or studying basic letters and numbers under the supervision of a tired-looking schoolmistress. But like all children, they find ways to resist. A game of cat's cradle hidden beneath a sheet, a whispered joke behind a raised hand, a quick exchange of small treasures, a pretty button, a scrap of coloured string, a smooth pebble smuggled in from the yard. These small acts of defiance give you hope. The workhouse hasn't crushed their spirits entirely. They're still children, still finding joy where they can, still creating their own society within the confines of this oppressive institution. As you work your way down the room, you eventually reach your daughter's bed. You focus intently on scrubbing the floor beside it, taking longer than necessary. "Mama," she whispers, barely moving her lips. "You're here." "I'm working in the infirmary now," you murmur back, eyes on your work. "I'll see you every day." Her face glows with this news. "Is Papa here too? And James?" "Papa's working. James is learning boot repair. You don't mention your husband's infected hand, your son's forced labour." She doesn't need those worries. They're well. We'll all be together on Sunday. It's a promise you can't guarantee. Sunday visiting depends on the whims of the staff, the behaviour records of the inmates, a dozen arbitrary factors, but she needs something to look forward to. "I saved something for you," she whispers, and quickly slips a small object from her pocket to the floor beside your bucket. It's a piece of hard candy, sucked down to half its original size, a precious treasure in the workhouse, where sugar is a rare luxury for regular inmates. She must have received it from one of the charitable ladies who sometimes visit, bringing small gifts for the children. The fact that she saved it for you instead of eating it herself makes your heart contract painfully. Even here, she's still your generous, loving child. "Thank you, my love," you whisper, palming the candy and slipping it into your pocket. "But you should have enjoyed it yourself." She shakes her head minutely. "Wanted you to have it." The ward mistress is approaching. You resume scrubbing vigorously, moving on to the next section of floor. Your daughter returns to her mending, face carefully blank. As you clean, you listen to the schoolmistress's lesson, basic reading from a simplified Bible, heavy on passages about obedience and the virtue of hard work. The children recite in dull unison, clearly memorizing without understanding or caring about the content. Later, there's arithmetic, simple addition, and subtraction focused entirely on practical applications like measuring cloth or counting change. Education in the workhouse is strictly utilitarian, designed to create servants, labourers, and tradespeople who can function in the most basic sense, not to encourage thought or ambition. Still, it's more education than many poor children outside the workhouse receive. Another of the system's cruel ironies. Some children are actually better off in this terrible place than they would be on the streets or in the worst slums. The morning passes in a blur of scrubbing, sweeping, and emptying chamber pots. You manage a few more brief exchanges with your daughter, building up a precious store of information. She's getting enough food. Barely. She's made a friend, a girl named Sarah, who shares her bed at night. The ward mistress is strict but not cruel, unlike some others you've heard about who beat children for the smallest infractions. At midday, you're called away to help serve the children's dinner, a thin soup with bread, marginally better than what adult inmates receive. The children line up in perfect order, bowls in hand, each receiving exactly the same portion with military precision. You make sure your daughter's bowl gets an extra potato, subtly scraping it from the bottom of the pot where the vegetables tend to settle. It's a tiny thing, but it's something you can do, a small exercise of maternal care in a system designed to sever the parent-child bond. After helping with dinner service, you're assigned to the boys' infirmary ward for the afternoon. Your heart leaps. Perhaps you'll see your son after all. But he's not among the patients, which is both a relief and a disappointment. The boot repair shop must be keeping him for the full day. The boys' ward is similar to the girls', though somehow louder despite the same strict rules. Boys seem to find more ways to create noise, tapping feet, scraping chairs, coughing with suspicious theatricality. The wardmaster has his hands full maintaining order, which works to your advantage as you go about your cleaning duties with minimal supervision. One boy, about your son's age, notices your interest. "Looking for someone, missus?" he whispers as you sweep near his bed. "James," you whisper back, tall for his age, dark hair like mine. The boy nods in recognition. "Boot shop. He's all right. Smashed his thumb with a hammer yesterday but didn't cry, not even once." There's respect in the boy's voice. In the harsh society of workhouse children, stoicism under pain earns status. "Thank you," you murmur, slipping him a small piece of the bread you saved from your own breakfast. He makes it vanish with the practiced sleight of hand all workhouse children develop. By the end of your shift, you're exhausted but more hopeful than you've been since entering this place. Your daughter is safe, and as well as can be expected, your son is learning a trade that might offer him a future. Your husband is out of the stone yard, at least temporarily, and you've secured a work assignment that allows you some contact with your children. Small victories. But in the workhouse, small victories are what keep you going. Back in the women's dormitory that evening, you find Ellen already in her bed, face pale with exhaustion. "Laundry was hell today," she tells you. 3 women collapsed from the heat. They're working us harder because they're short-staffed with so many moved to infirmary duty. You feel a pang of guilt for your relatively easier day, but Ellen waves it away. Rather you than some stranger. Besides, you'll pay for it with typhus risk. She's right, of course. Infirmary duty means constant exposure to disease, but it's a risk you're willing to take for the chance to see your children, to maintain that tenuous family connection that the workhouse tries so hard to sever. As you settle into your bed, the hard mattress somehow less uncomfortable than it was 2 weeks ago, or perhaps you're just getting used to it, you realize something has changed. The workhouse hasn't gotten better. It's still a place of hunger, hardship, and humiliation. But you've gotten stronger. You've learned to navigate its Byzantine rules. You've found allies. You've discovered small ways to exercise control, to maintain dignity, to resist the system's attempt to break you down into an anonymous unit of labor. You're surviving, and in the workhouse, survival itself is a form of rebellion. The cough that's been troubling you comes back as you lie in the darkness, and you muffle it in your blanket as best you can. Tomorrow, you'll steal some of the horehound syrup given to infirmary patients. Another small rebellion, another survival strategy. Sleep comes, and with it dreams of home again. But this time, the home in your dreams isn't the one you lost. It's a new one, a future one, where your family is reunited, where there's enough food, where the shadow of the workhouse is behind you rather than around you. A fantasy, perhaps. But fantasy is another survival tool. Another way to resist. Another reason to wake up tomorrow when the bell rings, to face another day of this life that's become your reality. Unlike your comfortable bed now, with its soft pillows and warm blankets, this workhouse bed offers little physical comfort. But tonight, wrapped in the knowledge that your children are safe and the determination to keep them that way, you find a different kind of comfort. The comfort of purpose, of love that survives even the workhouse's attempts to extinguish it. And for now, that's enough to carry you through one more night in this place where poverty is treated as a crime, and those who suffer it are punished accordingly. Sunday, the one day when the relentless grind of workhouse life eases slightly. No stone breaking, no laundry, no boot repairs, just chapel in the morning, a slightly better meal at midday, and most precious of all, visiting hour. For 1 hour each Sunday, the strict segregation of the workhouse relaxes enough to allow families to sit together in the dining hall. Husbands and wives reunite. Parents see children they barely recognize. Siblings who live on opposite sides of the vast building get a brief chance to remember their family. It's been a month now since you entered the workhouse, a month of adaptation and endurance, a month of learning to survive in a system designed to break you, and throughout that month, these Sunday visiting hours have become the anchor that keeps you tethered to sanity. This morning, you wake before the bell, anticipation making sleep impossible. Even the persistent cough that's been troubling you seems less bothersome today. You've been treating it with stolen horehound syrup from the infirmary, hiding the symptoms as best you can. The last thing you need is to be quarantined and miss visiting hour. Ellen is already awake in the next bed, her face showing the same suppressed excitement. Her sister is coming to visit from outside, a rare privilege granted only to those inmates who have maintained perfect behavior records. Ellen has been on her best behavior for weeks, swallowing her natural defiance, becoming a model of workhouse compliance, all for this 1 hour with her last remaining family member. Nervous? You ask her quietly. She nods. 3 months since I've seen her. She was trying to save enough to get me out, but she trails off. You both know how unlikely that is. Once the workhouse claims you, escape requires resources few poor families can muster. The bell rings and the dormitory stirs to life with more energy than usual. Women who normally drag themselves from bed now move with purpose, taking extra care with their appearance despite the identical workhouse uniforms and cropped hair. They wash faces thoroughly at the communal basin. They straighten caps and smooth aprons. They pinch cheeks to bring colour to pallid skin. It's a pitiful attempt at dignity, but a moving one. Even here, even now, they want their families to see them at their best. They don't want children to be frightened by how gaunt they've become, or husbands to worry over their obvious exhaustion. You join this pathetic primping, using a precious corner of your soap ration to wash not just your face but your neck and hands as well. You smooth your hair as best you can under the workhouse cap. You even trade your afternoon bread portion with another woman for a small square of mirror, just enough to ensure you don't look as desperate as you feel. The morning follows its usual routine: roll call, prayers, breakfast, but there's a current of anticipation running beneath the surface, a collective awareness that today offers a brief respite from the worst aspects of workhouse life. After breakfast comes chapel mandatory for all inmates not confined to the infirmary. The workhouse chapel is a stark, unadorned room with hard wooden benches and a plain pulpit. No stained glass, no decorative elements, nothing to elevate the spirit or suggest transcendence. Just a functional space for fulfilling the legal requirement that workhouse inmates receive religious instruction. The chaplain is a thin, dyspeptic man named Reverend Smallwood, whose sermons invariably focus on the moral failings of the poor and the virtue of patient suffering. Today's homily is on the parable of the talents, a biblical story he interprets as a divine endorsement of Victorian capitalism, with the servant who buried his money instead of investing it representing the shiftless poor who fail to improve their station through industry and thrift. And so, my brothers and sisters, he concludes, oblivious to the irony of addressing the segregated congregation as a unified family, let us remember that the Lord rewards those who multiply their gifts through honest labour, while those who waste their opportunities through idleness and vice shall be cast into outer darkness. The outer darkness of the workhouse, he doesn't need to add. The implication is clear enough. After chapel comes the midday meal, a cut of actual roast beef for each inmate. Small but real meat nonetheless, boiled potatoes, cabbage, and a slice of plain cake for dessert. It's a feast by workhouse standards, though it would barely qualify as adequate in the outside world. Sunday best, Ellen murmurs as you collect your portions. Got to keep up appearances. Can't have visitors thinking their taxes aren't feeding us properly. The meal is consumed quickly despite its relative bounty. Everyone is too eager for visiting hour to linger over food, even this rare treat, and then, finally, it's time. The dining hall has been rearranged for visiting. Long tables are set up with benches on either side. Inmates are led in first and seated on one side. Then visitors are admitted and directed to sit opposite their family members. Guards stand at regular intervals around the perimeter of the room, watching for any infractions of the rules. You scan the room anxiously as women file in from the dormitories, men from their quarters, children from their separate wings. Where is your family? Will they all be permitted to come today? And then you see them. Your husband enters with the men, looking thinner than ever, but walking steadily. His hand seems healed, though he holds it carefully. Behind him comes your son, taller somehow after just a month, his face already losing the softness of childhood. And from the opposite door, your daughter appears with the other girls, her eyes searching the room until they find you. Something loosens in your chest, a knot of anxiety you've been carrying so long you'd stopped noticing it. They're here, they're alive. For 1 hour you can be a family again. They make their way to your table, your husband and son sitting across from you and your daughter, the divide symbolic of the greater separation the workhouse enforces. No touching is allowed, the rule is strictly enforced, but just being able to see their faces, to hear their voices, is a gift beyond measure. You look well, your husband says, the blatant lie bringing tears to your eyes. You know you look terrible, gaunt, exhausted, your hands raw from laundry work despite your recent transfer to infirmary duty. So do you reply, returning the kindness. How's the hand? He flexes it, showing relatively normal movement. Better. Oakum picking's easier than the stone yard, at least. And they've moved me to the boot shop permanently, your son adds, a hint of pride in his voice. Master says I have a knack for leather work. That's wonderful. You beam at him, genuinely pleased. Skilled work is not just easier, but potentially a path out of the workhouse. Apprenticeships occasionally open up for promising boys, leading to actual trades in the outside world. Your daughter is quieter, watching the interaction with solemn eyes that seem too old for her face. When are we going home? She finally asks, the question you've all been avoiding. How do you answer? There is no home to go back to. Your landlord rented your rooms to another family the day after you left. Your few possessions were sold to cover back rent. The life you had is gone. We're working on it, your husband says, rescuing you from the impossible question. I've been asking about outside work parties. If I can get placed on one, earn a little money, work parties are another potential escape route groups of able-bodied men sent out to do manual labour for local farms or businesses, earning a tiny wage that's mostly claimed by the workhouse but could, theoretically, eventually add up to enough for discharge. And I'm learning everything I can in the boot shop, your son adds, clearly wanting to contribute to this fragile hope. If I get good enough, maybe someone will hire me. Your daughter looks from face to face, not quite believing but wanting to. I'm learning to sew really well, she offers after a moment. Miss Hartley says my stitches are the neatest in the class. That's my clever girl, you say, forcing brightness into your voice. Such valuable skills you're both learning. This is the fiction you maintain during visiting hours, that the workhouse is temporary, that the skills being acquired are stepping stones to a better future, that there's a plan beyond mere survival. It's a necessary fiction, the truth that most who enter the workhouse never leave except through death or desperate flight is too crushing to acknowledge. Around you, dozens of other families are engaged in similar conversations, building their own fragile castles of hope in the air. A mother assures her children that they'll be together again soon. A husband promises his wife that his latest job prospect will pan out. Siblings make plans for what they'll do when we get out. The human capacity for hope is both beautiful and heartbreaking. As the hour progresses, you exchange small news and observations. Your husband tells you about the men's dormitory, the characters there, the small dramas that unfold even in the controlled environment of the workhouse. Your son describes his work in the boot shop, his evident pride in learning a trade, mixing uncomfortably with the knowledge that he's providing free labour. Your daughter tells you about her friend Sarah, about the rhymes they whisper to each other after lights out, about the strict but occasionally kind schoolmistress who slipped her an extra piece of cake at yesterday's lesson, small bright spots in a dark existence. You share your own experiences sparingly, minimizing the hardships, emphasizing the small victories, your promotion to infirmary duty, the fact that your cough is getting better, a lie but a necessary one, the relatively decent Sunday dinner. What you don't talk about, the man who died of typhus in the bed next to the one you were cleaning yesterday, the way your back aches constantly from bending over sick beds, the persistent hunger that never quite leaves even after meals, the night terrors that wake you gasping, convinced you're buried alive in this place with no escape. Some burdens aren't meant to be shared. As the end of the hour approaches, the atmosphere in the room grows tense. Conversations become more urgent as families try to cram a week's worth of connection into the final minutes. Children who have maintained brave faces begin to crack, some crying at the prospect of another week's separation. Guards move more visibly around the perimeter, preparing to enforce the return to segregation. Next week, your husband says, as always at this point. We'll have better news next week. You nod, maintaining the fiction. Next week. The bell rings, signalling the end of visiting hour. Around the room, families engage in hasty final exchanges, last words that need to last 7 days. Some risk punishment by reaching across tables for a forbidden touch of hands. a fleeting physical connection. The guards begin calling for inmates to stand, to form lines according to their categories: men, women, boys, girls, elderly, infirm. The artificial family units created for this 1 hour dissolve back into the workhouse's rigid classification system. Your son is the first to go, rising quickly at the guard's command, not looking back as he joins the line of boys. He's learned that showing emotion makes him a target. Your daughter goes next, lower lip trembling but head high, following the other girls toward their wing of the building. Your husband is the last to leave your table. Stay strong, he says simply. It's both encouragement and plea. Stay strong for the children. Stay strong so I can too. You as well, you reply, the words inadequate for all they need to carry. Then he's gone, swallowed by the mass of shuffling men, and visiting hour is over. The brief respite from workhouse reality gives way to the usual routine. The tables are rearranged. The dining hall returns to its segregated state. The guards resume their usual positions. But something of the hour lingers, a sense of connection, of purpose, of identity beyond inmate or pauper. For a little while, you were a wife and mother again, not just number 483 in the women's ward. It's something to hold on to in the days ahead. As you file back toward the women's dormitory for the afternoon rest period, another small Sunday luxury, Ellen falls into step beside you. Her face shows the complex mix of emotions that visiting day always brings: joy at the connection, pain at its brevity, hope and despair tangled together. "Your sister came?" you ask. She nods. "Brought news from outside. My old landlord died. Heart failure." "I'm sorry," you say automatically. Ellen snorts. "Don't be. Bastard evicted 3 families last winter, including mine, raised the rent on Christmas Eve and threw us out when we couldn't pay on the spot." She glances around to make sure no guards are within earshot. "Sister says his widow's offering to take back some of the evicted tenants at the old rates. If I can get out of here." The thought dangles between you, too fragile to be fully expressed. Getting out requires money for rent, for food, for clothes to replace the ones taken on admission. Where would such money come from? The tiny allowance earned through extra work in the workhouse would take months or years to accumulate enough. And yet, it's a seed of possibility, a tiny crack in the seemingly impenetrable wall of your confinement. "You could do it," you say, allowing yourself to nurture her hope even as you try to restrain your own. "Your sister might help with the initial costs." Ellen shakes her head. She can barely feed her own kids, but she knows someone looking for a washerwoman. Hard work, but real wages. The conversation fades as you enter the dormitory, where talking is officially prohibited during rest periods, but the seed has been planted in your mind as well. People do leave the workhouse. Not many, and not easily, but it happens. Through outside assistance, through accumulated earnings, through skills learned within these walls that can be traded for wages without. The afternoon passes in the Sunday pattern: rest period, followed by Bible reading in small groups, followed by supper, bread and cheese, back to standard fare, followed by evening prayers, followed by an early bedtime. It's both more restful and more tedious than weekdays, with their constant labour at least providing distraction from the underlying misery. As you lie in your bed that night, staring at the ceiling in the dim light from the night porter's lantern, you find your thoughts returning to Ellen's news. A possibility of escape, however remote, a reminder that the workhouse, for all its prison-like aspects, does have doors that open outward as well as inward. What would it take for your family to leave? Your husband would need work, real work, not the make work of the stone yard or oakum picking. Your son's boot-making skills might eventually lead to something, but he's months or years from being employable. You could return to laundering as you did before, but the pay is barely enough to feed one person, let alone 4. The obstacles seem insurmountable when viewed all at once, but perhaps like everything else in this place, they need to be tackled in smaller pieces, one day at a time, one problem at a time. Your thoughts are interrupted by movement nearby Ellen, rising quietly from her bed. She moves with the careful stealth of someone well practiced in avoiding detection, making her way toward the dormitory door. The night porter has stepped away, probably for his usual surreptitious smoke or drink. Ellen catches your eye as she passes, presses a finger to her lips, and slips out the door. Where is she going? The penalties for being out of bed after lights out are severe reduced rations at minimum, the refractory cell for repeat offenders. Is her news from outside worth such a risk? You lie awake, anxiety gnawing at you, until she returns perhaps 20 minutes later. She's slightly breathless but smiling as she slides back into her bed. "What were you doing?" you whisper when the night porter's rounds take him to the far end of the dormitory. "Making arrangements," she whispers back, mysterious and pleased with herself. "Tell you tomorrow." Sleep comes fitfully that night. Your dreams a confused jumble of visiting hours that never end and doors that open onto blank walls. You wake feeling unrested, the familiar tickle in your throat worse than usual. The cough you've been suppressing breaks free, a harsh, racking sound that draws irritated glares from nearby women. "You need to get that looked at," Ellen says as you make your way to the washroom. "It's getting worse." "I can't," you say. "If they think it's serious, they'll quarantine me. I won't be able to work in the children's ward. I won't see my daughter." Ellen frowns, but doesn't press the issue. She understands the calculus of workhouse existence. Sometimes one kind of suffering must be endured to prevent another, worse kind. After breakfast, you report to the infirmary as usual. Sunday's brief respite already seems distant, the grinding routine of workhouse life reasserting itself with depressing speed. But as you collect your cleaning supplies, Mrs. Blackett calls you into her office. "You're being reassigned," she says without preamble. "Women's work detail needs help with the mending. You'll report there after dinner." Your heart sinks. The mending room means no more access to your daughter in the children's ward, no more small moments of connection during your cleaning rounds, no more ability to slip her extra food or small comforts. But you begin, then stop yourself. Protesting reassignment is futile at best, dangerous at worst. Mrs. Blackett has been relatively kind, but she's still an authority figure in a system that demands compliance. To your surprise, though, she seems to understand your unspoken concern. "Your girl's doing well enough," she says, her voice softening slightly. "She'll be moved to the sewing room herself soon. She has a neat hand with a needle. You might see her there. It's meant as consolation, and you accept it with a nod of thanks, but the loss still stings. The daily visual confirmation of your daughter's well-being has been a crucial anchor for your mental state." The morning's work passes in a blur of scrubbing and cleaning, your mind preoccupied with this new complication. By dinner, you're resigned if not reconciled to the change. At least the mending room will be easier on your body than infirmary work sitting with a needle, rather than constantly bending and lifting. As promised, you report to the women's work detail after dinner. The mending room is a long, narrow space with windows set high in the walls, providing light but no view of the outside world. Wooden tables run the length of the room, each with women seated on both sides, heads bent over their work. The work matron assigns you to a station near the door where a pile of torn sheets awaits your attention. The task is straightforward: repair the rips and tears with neat, invisible stitches so the sheets can be returned to service. It's tedious but not difficult, the kind of work you did routinely in your own home before entering the workhouse. As you settle into the repetitive motion of needle and thread, Ellen appears at the table across from you, her own hands busy with mending a workhouse uniform. "I'm on same shift as you now," she says quietly, keeping her eyes on her work to avoid attracting the matron's attention. "Took some doing, but there are advantages to knowing people." You raise an eyebrow, questioning. "Or last night," she explains in a near whisper, "had a word with Jenkins in the men's ward. He knows someone in assignment office, called in a favour. You risked the refractory cell for a shift change. The punishment seems disproportionate to the benefit." Ellen gives you a significant look. "Not just any shift change, this one." She nods subtly toward the far end of the room, where a door leads to what you assume is a storage area or another workroom. "What's through there?" you ask, keeping your voice low. "Delivery entrance," Ellen murmurs, "for supplies. Opens directly to the yard, only locked during actual deliveries, otherwise just latched from inside." She lets this sink in for a moment. "And guess who's on delivery duty this week?" Understanding dawns. Ellen has orchestrated not just a shift change, but potential access to an exeter way out of the workhouse that bypasses the main gates with their constant guards. "You're thinking of leaving," you say, the words barely audible. Ellen's hands continue their steady work with the needle, but her eyes, when they meet yours briefly, are alive with a fire you haven't seen before. "My sister found me work," she says, "starts next week. If I'm not there, she loses the connection." She works in silence for a moment, then adds, "I'm not dying in this place." The boldness of it takes your breath away. Absconding from the workhouse is a serious offence if caught. She'd face not just return to the workhouse, but criminal charges, possibly even imprisonment. And yet, weighed against the slow death of spirit and body that the workhouse offers, the risk might be worth taking. "What about your things?" you ask. Personal possessions are stored away on admission to be returned upon legitimate discharge. Ellen shrugs minutely. "Nothing I can't live without. Clothes are rags by now anyway." It's true, few inmates' clothes survive the extended storage in damp conditions. Many find upon discharge that their possessions have been ruined or mysteriously lost during their stay. "When?" you ask, the question covering a multitude of others. "When are you leaving? When did you start planning this? When did you decide the risk was worth taking?" "Or soon," is all she says, and then the matron is approaching, ending the conversation. The rest of the afternoon passes in relative silence, your hands working automatically at the mending while your mind churns with this new information. Ellen is planning to escape. She has a route, a plan, a destination, and, most critically, she has hope, real, concrete hope, not the vague, someday things will be better kind that sustains most workhouse inmates. As the workday ends and you file back to the dormitory for supper, you find yourself wondering, could your family do the same? The obstacles seem even more daunting for 4 people than for 1. Where would you go? How would you support yourselves? What if you were caught? And yet the seed planted by Ellen's news has taken root. The workhouse is not the only option. There are doors, literal and figurative, that lead outward. That night, as the dormitory settles into its usual pattern of coughing, snoring and muffled crying, Ellen leans across the narrow space between your beds. "Day after tomorrow," she whispers, "during afternoon delivery. If you want to come, be in the mending room." The invitation stuns you. You hadn't considered that her plans might include you. "I can't," you whisper back automatically. "My family." "Think about it," she interrupts. "Just think. That's all I'm saying." She turns away, ending the conversation, leaving you with a chaotic swirl of thoughts. Leave the workhouse. Leave your family. The ideas seem equally impossible, equally unthinkable, and yet, as you lie awake long into the night, you find yourself considering the unthinkable. If you left, found work, saved money, could you eventually secure your family's release through legitimate means, pay for their discharge, provide a home for them to come to? Or would leaving condemn you all to permanent separation with the added burden of criminal charges if you were caught? The questions circle endlessly, offering no clear answers. The cough that's been troubling you returns with a vengeance, forcing you to bury your face in the thin pillow to muffle the sound. Your chest aches with each spasm, a deep pain that suggests the condition is worsening despite your stolen medicine. Morning comes too soon, as always. The bell, the rush, the roll call, breakfast, work assignments, the familiar rhythm of workhouse life continues, but now with an undercurrent of tension, of possibility, of decision. Ellen goes about her day with no outward sign of her plans. She works beside you in the mending room, chatting casually about ordinary workhouse matters, giving no indication that tomorrow might be her last day in this place. You watch her, marvelling at her composure. Is this the result of long planning, or simply the natural steadiness of a woman who has survived 3 years in the workhouse without losing her essential self? Your own thoughts remain turbulent. The image of your family at visiting hour haunts you, your husband's gaunt face, your son's premature seriousness, your daughter's solemn eyes. They need you. Abandoning them, even temporarily, even with the best intentions, feels like a betrayal of everything you are as a wife and mother. And yet, the workhouse is slowly killing all of you. The inadequate food, the back-breaking labour, the constant exposure to disease. How long can any of you survive here? Would a temporary separation, if it led to eventual freedom for all, be worth the pain it caused? The questions have no easy answers, but tomorrow will demand one nonetheless. As the day ends and night falls once more on the workhouse, you find yourself praying not the rote prayers of the chapel service or the mealtime grace, but a genuine plea for guidance, for clarity, for strength to make the right choice, whatever that may be. Sleep, when it finally comes, brings dreams of doors, some opening onto sunlight and freedom, others slamming shut with the finality of prison cells. You wake repeatedly, your body tense with indecision, your mind racing with scenarios both hopeful and dire. Morning arrives, and with it the day of decision. Ellen moves through her routine with the same outward calm, but you notice small preparations. She wears an extra layer beneath her workhouse uniform. She saves half her breakfast bread, wrapping it carefully in a scrap of cloth and tucking it into her pocket. She drinks more water than usual at the communal basin. You go about your own day in a fog of indecision, the hours slipping away too quickly. Before you know it, dinner is over and you're back in the mending room, the afternoon delivery approaching. Whatever choice you make, the time to make it is now. Ellen catches your eye across the table, her expression questioning. Will you join her? In that moment, clarity finally comes. You think of your family not just as they are now, thin and defeated in the workhouse, but as they could be. Your husband regaining his strength through proper food, your son completing his education, perhaps even becoming a proper cobbler with his own shop someday, your daughter growing up without the shadow of the workhouse hanging over her. These possibilities seem distant, almost fantastical from within these walls. But outside, with one person free to work, to save, to prepare a place for the others, you give Ellen a small nod. Yes, you'll go with her. Her face shows momentary surprise, then resolution. She glances toward the delivery door, then back to you, a clear instruction to be ready. The next hour passes with excruciating slowness. You work mechanically at your mending, hands steady despite the turmoil in your mind. You're really doing this. You're leaving the workhouse, leaving your family, at least temporarily, breaking the law, risking everything. A cart rumbles into the yard outside, audible through the high windows. The delivery. Ellen tenses slightly, eyes still on her work but body alert. The matron goes to the door, speaks briefly with someone outside, then turns back to the room. Jenkins, Reynolds, help with the supplies, she orders, pointing to two women near the door. As they rise and head outside, Ellen sets down her mending and stretches, a casual movement that brings her to her feet without attracting attention. She makes her way toward the wash basin in the corner, passing close to the delivery door as she does. This is it, the moment of decision. You set down your own work, stand and follow her, heart pounding so loudly you're sure everyone must hear it. But the other women remain focused on their mending, the matron distracted by some paperwork at her desk. Ellen reaches the door, glances back once to ensure you're following, then slips through it with practiced ease. You're right behind her, passing from the stuffy confines of the mending room into the relative open air of the delivery yard. The yard is small, enclosed by high walls with a gate leading to the street. The delivery cart blocks most of the gate, being unloaded by workhouse men under the supervision of a bored-looking guard. Ellen moves confidently toward the shadows at the far end of the yard, where a stack of empty crates creates a makeshift staircase to the top of the wall. This is her plan, you realise. Not the gate, which is too well guarded, but the wall itself. It's a daring strategy. The wall is at least 12 feet high, with broken glass embedded along the top to discourage exactly this kind of escape attempt. But the crates provide access, and Ellen has clearly prepared for the glass. She pulls a folded blanket from beneath her uniform, a thin workhouse blanket, purloined who knows when or how, and gestures for you to follow her up the crates. The guard and workers remain focused on the delivery, their backs to your position. Ellen climbs quickly, places the blanket over the glass-topped wall, and hoists herself up and over in one fluid motion that speaks of careful planning and possibly previous practice. You follow more clumsily, your heart in your throat, certain that at any moment someone will look up, will shout, will raise the alarm. But no one does. You reach the top of the wall, the blanket protecting you from the worst of the glass, though something sharp still slices through your sleeve and into your arm. The pain is distant, irrelevant. You're at the threshold of freedom. Ellen is already on the other side, looking up at you expectantly. You take a deep breath, offer one silent apology to your family for this temporary desertion, and let yourself drop into the unknown. The fall is longer than expected, the impact jarring despite your bent knees. For a moment you think you've injured yourself, ruined the escape before it's properly begun, but the pain subsides enough for you to stand, to follow Ellen as she moves quickly away from the workhouse wall and into the maze of streets beyond. You're out. You've escaped the workhouse. The realization is dizzying, almost hallucinatory in its intensity. After a month of confinement, of rules and bells and constant supervision, you're suddenly improbably free. But freedom you're about to discover comes with its own set of challenges. Unlike your comfortable bed right now, with its soft pillows and warm blankets, the world outside the workhouse offers no guaranteed shelter, no matter how meager. You've traded the security of confinement for the uncertainty of liberty, with all its attendant risks and possibilities. As you follow Ellen deeper into the labyrinth of London's streets, leaving the workhouse behind with each step, you can only hope that this choice, this desperate, terrifying, necessary choice, will ultimately lead not just to your own freedom, but to your family's as well. A new chapter begins. One filled with risks, certainly, but also with something long absent from workhouse existence. Hope. Real, tangible hope for a future beyond those high walls and rigid rules. And for now, that hope is enough to carry you forward, one uncertain step at a time. Freedom, as it turns out, is both sweeter and more terrifying than you remembered. After a month in the workhouse, the outside world assaults your senses. The streets of London in 1850 are a cacophony of sound-hoarse hooves on cobblestones, street vendors calling their wares, children playing, adults arguing, the constant background rumble of a city in perpetual motion. The smells are overwhelming: horse manure, coal smoke, rotting food, unwashed bodies, cheap gin, expensive perfume, all mixing together in the close air of narrow streets. The colours seem impossibly vibrant after the uniform grey of the workhouse bright shop signs, gaudy clothes, even the drab browns and blacks of everyday attire, more varied than the identical uniforms you've grown accustomed to. For the first hour after your escape, you and Ellen simply walk, putting as much distance as possible between yourselves and the workhouse. You move with purpose but not panic, trying to look like ordinary working women rather than fugitives. Ellen leads the way, navigating the maze of streets with the confidence of someone who grew up in these neighbourhoods. "My sister lives in Bethnal Green," she tells you as you cross a small, rubbish-strewn park, about an hour's walk from here. "She's expecting me tomorrow, but she'll take us in tonight." Us? The realization that Ellen has included you in her plans all along still surprises you. She glances back, a rare, genuine smile crossing her face. "Couldn't leave you there, could I? Not after you helped me through my first year. Besides, 2 of us can earn more than 1. It's a practical consideration, but the underlying sentiment warms you. In the harsh world of the workhouse, Ellen has become something like a friend and ally, at least in the daily struggle for survival. That alliance has now extended beyond those walls, a fragile bridge between institutional misery and whatever uncertain future awaits. As you walk, your body reminds you of its compromised state. The persistent cough that you've been hiding from workhouse authorities breaks free in the cold air, doubling you over with its intensity. Each spasm sends pain through your chest, and when you finally catch your breath, there's an alarming metallic taste in your mouth. Ellen watches with concern. "That's not good," she says, stating the obvious. "You need proper medicine, not that stolen syrup." "I'll be fine," you insist, though you both know it's likely a lie. Whatever's wrong with your lungs has been steadily worsening despite your attempts at self-treatment, but there's no time to dwell on it now. You keep moving, following Ellen through progressively poorer neighbourhoods as you head east. The buildings grow shabbier, the streets narrower and more crowded, the faces of passers-by showing the same gaunt hunger you've seen in the workhouse. "Almost there," Ellen says as twilight deepens into true darkness. Gas lamps throw pools of sickly yellow light at irregular intervals, leaving much of the street in shadow. It's in one of these shadows that she suddenly pulls you into a doorway, pressing back against the wall. "What?" You begin, but she presses a finger to her lips, silencing you. A moment later, you see what alarmed her. 2 men in the dark blue uniforms of workhouse guards are moving down the street, stopping occasionally to speak with pedestrians, clearly showing them something, a description of escaped inmates perhaps, or even a crude sketch. They're looking for you. Your heart pounds painfully against your ribs as the guards approach your hiding place. If they look into this doorway, if they shine their lantern into this shadow, you'll be discovered, returned to the workhouse in disgrace, separated permanently from your family, possibly even imprisoned for absconding. But luck or providence is with you. A disturbance further down the street, a drunk being ejected from a gin shop, diverts the guards' attention. They move towards the commotion, bypassing your hiding place entirely. Ellen waits until they're well away before relaxing slightly. "They're faster than I expected," she murmurs. "Must have noticed we were missing at the evening head count." "Will they come to your sisters?" you ask, suddenly concerned that you're leading trouble directly to your only safe harbour. Ellen shakes her head. "They don't know about her. I was careful never to mention her in the workhouse, and she never visited until last Sunday." Used a false name when she came, too. She grins slightly. Not my first escape plan, just the first I've executed. This glimpse of forethought reassures you. Ellen isn't just acting on desperate impulse. She's been planning this move for months, perhaps years, waiting for the right opportunity. You continue on more cautiously now, staying to side streets and shadows, avoiding the main thoroughfares where guards might be watching. The neighborhood grows even more impoverished, buildings leaning drunkenly against each other, sewage running in open gutters, faces watching from doorways with the flat, hopeless expressions of those who've seen too much suffering to be surprised by anything. Finally, Ellen stops before a narrow building wedged between a chandler's shop and what appears to be an unlicensed drinking establishment. The stairs leading to the upper floors are rickety, the banister broken in several places. She leads you up to the third floor, then down a dark hallway to a door at the end. She knocks, 3 quick taps, a pause, 2 more, clearly a signal. After a moment, the door opens a crack, then wider as the person inside recognizes Ellen. "Christ almighty," says a woman's voice, thick with emotion. "You actually did it." "Told you I would," Ellen replies, stepping into the small room beyond. "Got company too. Hope that's all right." The woman Ellen's sister, you presume, looks you over with a mixture of surprise and resignation. She's older than Ellen, her face lined with the same hardship, but tempered with a different kind of strength. The strength of someone who's managed to remain outside the workhouse, despite poverty. Who's held on to some small measure of independence in a world designed to strip it away. "Another mouth," she says, "but there's no real complaint in it." "Well, come in then. Can't have you standing in the hallway where anyone might see." The room beyond is small but astonishingly cozy after the institutional bareness of the workhouse. A fire burns in a tiny grate, casting warm light over simple furnishings, a table, 2 chairs, a bed in the corner partially screened by a hanging blanket. A child sleeps on a pallet near the fire, perhaps 7 or 8 years old, curled under a patched quilt. "My nephew," Ellen says, following your gaze. "Growing like a weed, isn't he?" Her sister Annie, you learn as introductions are made, bustles about preparing tea. Actual tea, not the watery, tanninless substitute served in the workhouse on special occasions. The scent of it, rich and aromatic, brings tears to your eyes. "Sit, sit," Annie urges, gesturing to the chairs. "You both look dead on your feet, and thin as rails, they starving you in there." "Or more or less," Ellen says, dropping into a chair with a sigh of relief. "Enough to keep you alive for work, not enough for anything else." You sit more carefully, suddenly conscious of your workhouse uniform, your unwashed state, your cough that might wake the sleeping child. But Annie doesn't seem bothered by any of it, pouring tea into chipped cups and setting them before you with the easy hospitality of someone accustomed to making do with little. "Drink," she commands. "Food's coming. Not much, mind you, but better than workhouse slop, I'd wager." The tea is hot and sweet, laced with condensed milk and more sugar than you've tasted in a month. It slides down your raw throat like healing, easing the constant tickle that precedes your coughing fits. The warmth of the cup seeps into your cold, stiffened fingers. Such a small luxury, yet at this moment it feels like the height of indulgence. Annie produces bread, cheese, and a small piece of cold beef, a feast by workhouse standards. You eat slowly, savouring each bite, your shrunken stomach protesting even this modest amount. As you eat, Ellen and Annie talk in the shorthand of siblings, catching up on a month's worth of news and planning for what comes next. The washerwoman position Ellen mentioned is real. A wealthy household in Bloomsbury has lost their regular laundress to marriage and needs a replacement immediately. Pays 15 shillings a week, Annie says, plus room and board, though room is generous, more like a closet off the kitchen. Still, it's a good position. Woman who recommended you says the family treats their help decent. No funny business from the master. No impossible standards from the mistress. Ellen nods, absorbing this information. And my friend here, she asks, nodding toward you. Any word on other positions? Annie looks you over more carefully, assessing. Nothing definite, but Simpson at the Bull and Crown needs a pot girl, and his last one just up and left might take you on, at least temporarily. Working in a public house isn't ideal. The hours are long, the work hard, the pay minimal, and the clientele often difficult. But it's employment, a way to earn money outside the workhouse system. A step toward eventually reuniting your family. I can do it, you say, your voice rough from coughing but firm with determination. I'm stronger than I look, Annie nods, apparently satisfied with your resolve, if not your physical condition. We'll go see him tomorrow. For tonight, you both need rest. Ellen can share the bed with me. You can take the pallet by the fire once Timmy wakes. The arrangement is made matter-of-factly, with the easy practicality of those accustomed to making do with limited resources. The fact that Annie is willing to share her small space with not just her sister but a complete stranger speaks volumes about the bonds of working-class solidarity, the understanding that any of them could be in the workhouse but for luck and mutual aid. As Annie predicted, the child Timmy wakes shortly after, blinking sleepily at the unexpected visitors. He's a solemn-faced boy with Ellen's eyes, regarding you with the wariness of a child who's learned early that strangers aren't always benevolent. This is your Auntie Ellen, Annie tells him, drawing her sister forward. Remember I told you about her? And this is her friend from the workhouse. They're staying with us for a bit. Timmy studies Ellen with cautious interest. The one from the bad place? He asks, his voice small but clear. That's right, Ellen says, kneeling to his level. But I'm out now, and look what I brought you. She reaches into her pocket and produces a small treasure, a wooden top. Crudely carved but functional, obviously made by hand in secret moments at the workhouse. The boy's face lights up as he takes the gift, his reserve melting. Can you show me how it works? And so the evening passes in surprising domesticity, Ellen demonstrating the top, Annie preparing a simple supper, you resting by the fire, the constant ache in your chest momentarily eased by warmth and genuine food. It's not your home, not your family, but it's so far removed from the grim reality of the workhouse that it feels like paradise by comparison. As night deepens, sleeping arrangements are made. Timmy moves to a small trundle pulled from under the main bed. Ellen and Annie take the bed itself, and you settle on the pallet by the fire, wrapped in a blanket that smells of wood smoke and cheap soap, but blessedly not of the workhouse's distinctive blend of carbolic acid and misery. Sleep comes quickly, your exhausted body surrendering to it despite the unfamiliar surroundings and the lingering anxiety of your fugitive status. Your last conscious thought is of your family, your husband, your son, your daughter, still behind those high walls. Are they wondering where you are? Have they been told you've absconded, or simply that you've been moved to another ward or even another workhouse? Will they understand when they eventually learn the truth that you left not to abandon them, but to save them? These questions follow you into dreams that are a confused mixture of workhouse scenes and memories of your former home, of faces familiar and strange, of doors that open onto walls and windows that look out on empty sky. Morning comes too soon, announced not by the workhouse bell, but by the sounds of Annie moving about the small room, stoking the fire, preparing a simple breakfast. You wake coughing, each spasm sending fresh pain through your chest. When you finally catch your breath, there's definitely blood on your hand, not much, but unmistakable. Ellen notices, her face tightening with concern. We need to get you to a doctor. You shake your head. No money for doctors, and they might report us. Medical professionals are required to report suspicious cases to authorities, including fugitives from the workhouse. There's a charity clinic on Bell Street, Annie says, pragmatic as ever. They don't ask too many questions. We'll go after we see about the pot girl position. The day unfolds according to this plan. You wash as best you can with water from a communal pump in the building's courtyard. Annie provides a shawl to cover your workhouse uniform until better clothes can be found. Then you set out into the morning, 3 women and a child, navigating the already crowded streets of London's East End. The Bull and Crown is a modest public house on a corner near the market, its windows grimy, its sign faded, but its business apparently thriving even at this early hour. The proprietor, Simpson, is a florid man with the perpetually harried expression of someone running a marginally profitable business in a poor neighbourhood. He looks you over with the same assessing gaze Annie used the night before, but with none of the underlying kindness. Ever worked a public house before? No, you admit, but I'm a quick learner and I'm stronger than I look. This last is somewhat undermined by a fresh coughing fit which you try to suppress with limited success. Simpson frowns. Don't need sick staff. Customers don't like it, especially with all the fever going around. It's just a cough, Annie interjects smoothly. From the workhouse dust. She's hearty otherwise, and willing to work for fair wages. The negotiation that follows is brief but intense, with Annie driving a surprisingly hard bargain on your behalf. In the end, Simpson agrees to take you on for a trial period 3 days at 8 shillings a week, plus 1 meal per shift and sleeping space in a small room off the kitchen that's shared with 2 other female employees. It's a start. Not ideal, certainly not what you'd hoped for in your former life, but infinitely better than the workhouse. A chance to earn real money, to save, to eventually find a proper place and bring your family out legitimately. From the public house, Annie leads your small party to the charity clinic, a narrow building wedged between a pawn shop and a tenement, marked only by a small sign reading St. Bartholomew's Mission and the queue of obviously ill people waiting outside. The wait is long. The examination, when it finally comes, cursory but competent. The diagnosis confirms what you've already suspected: consumption, the same disease that claimed your youngest child 2 years ago. The doctor, a tired-looking man in his 50s, prescribes rest, good food, fresh air, and a tonic that costs more than you'll earn in your first week at the public house. His expression makes it clear he knows these recommendations are largely impossible for someone of your station, but he offers them nonetheless, a sort of medical formality. How long, you ask, the question encompassing all the fears you've been trying to suppress. He shrugs, already turning to make notes for the next patient. Hard to say. A year, perhaps, maybe 2, with luck and care, less if you return to the workhouse. It's not the death sentence you feared, but neither is it a reprieve. Consumption is relentless, progressive. Even with the best care, which you certainly can't afford, it usually ends only one way. But a year or 2 is something. Time to work, to save, to secure your family's future, even if you won't be part of it for long. This sobering knowledge colours the days that follow. You begin work at the Bull and Crown, learning the rhythm of public house life, the early morning cleaning, the midday crowd of workers seeking quick refreshment, the evening rush of men spending their hard-earned wages on brief oblivion, the late-night stragglers who have nowhere else to go. The work is hard but straightforward, washing glasses, scrubbing tables, emptying spittoons, occasionally helping in the kitchen when the regular cook is overwhelmed. Your cough earns suspicious glances from customers and colleagues alike, but Simpson seems satisfied with your work ethic and the promised meal, each shift usually a bowl of whatever stew or soup is being served. That day is more substantial than workhouse fare. You save every penny of your wages, secreting them in a small cloth bag Annie provides, planning for the day when you can afford a room of your own, however humble. Ellen, meanwhile, takes up her position in the Bloomsbury household. The work is harder than anticipated. The family has 5 children and entertains frequently, generating mountains of laundry, but the conditions are as promised. Decent food, a small but private room, and employers who, if not exactly kind, are at least not actively cruel. You see each other on Ellen's half-day off each week, comparing notes on your new lives, planning next steps. With both of you earning wages, however meagre, the dream of securing legitimate release for your family moves incrementally closer to reality. But the workhouse casts a long shadow. You scan every street for guards who might recognize you. You jump at the sound of official-looking footsteps. You avoid the neighborhood around your former prison entirely, even though it means a longer route to most places. And always, your thoughts return to those you left behind. Your husband, growing thinner in the men's ward. Your son, his childhood disappearing into the boot shop's endless labor. Your daughter, her solemn eyes watching the dormitory door each morning, perhaps wondering why you no longer appear with the cleaning cart. Sunday visiting hours come and go without you. Are they told you've been moved to another workhouse, that you're ill in the infirmary, or the truth that you've absconded, becoming one of the cautionary tales the guards use to discourage similar attempts? A month passes. Your health neither improves nor dramatically worsens, maintained in a precarious balance by slightly better nutrition and marginally better conditions than the workhouse provided. The public housework becomes routine, your body adapting to its demands, despite the persistent cough. Simpson even increases your wages slightly after you prove adept at managing the more difficult customers, your quiet firmness somehow more effective than his blustering. With Ellen's help, you find a room of your own, a tiny attic space in a building not far from Annie's, barely large enough for a bed and a chair, but private and crucially yours. The rent takes half your weekly earnings, but having a door you can close, a space no supervisor can enter unannounced, feels like unimaginable luxury after the workhouse dormitory. And then, 6 weeks after your escape, a breakthrough. Ellen arrives at your room one Sunday afternoon, her expression a mixture of excitement and trepidation. "I found someone," she says without preamble, "someone who can help with your family." The someone turns out to be a clerk in the poor law office, a young man whose sister works as a maid in the same Bloomsbury household as Ellen. For a consideration, 2 weeks of Ellen's wages, painfully saved, he's willing to provide information and potentially assistance. "Your husband's still there," Ellen reports, relaying what the clerk has told her. "Still in the Oakham room. Your son's been moved to full-time boot shop work. Your daughter's in the sewing room now." She hesitates. They're alive. They're as well as can be expected. The relief of this knowledge brings tears to your eyes. They're alive. Whatever else has happened, whatever hardships they're enduring, they've survived another 6 weeks in that place. Can they be released, you ask, the question that's been burning in your mind since the day you left. Ellen nods slowly. Possibly. The clerk says there's a provision for family members to pay for the discharge of relatives. It's not common. Most who end up in the workhouse don't have family with means, but it exists. The fee depends on how long they've been inmates, their health, their potential for self-support. She takes a deep breath. For all 3, he estimates between £10 and £15. The sum is staggering. At your current wage, it would take months to save such an amount, even living as frugally as possible, and that doesn't account for the cost of supporting them once released rent, food, clothes to replace the ones taken on admission. But it's not impossible. That's the important thing. There is a path, however difficult, from here to reunion. How would it work, you ask, already mentally calculating how many extra shifts you could take, how much more you could save by eating less, whether there might be additional work available in the early mornings before the public house opens. The clerk would process the paperwork, Ellen explains. It would appear that a relative, an uncle, perhaps, or a cousin has come forward with the means to support them. There would be an inspection to ensure the proposed living situation is adequate. If approved, they would be released into this relative's care. But there is no relative, you point out, the obvious flaw in the plan. Ellen smiles slightly. There will be. The clerk knows someone willing to pose as the relative for another consideration. Not entirely legal, of course, but then neither is our current situation. It's a scheme balanced on multiple deceptions, dependent on the discretion of people you've never met, risking not just failure, but potential criminal charges. And yet, what alternative is there? Return to the workhouse voluntarily, surrendering the freedom you fought for. Continue as you are, working and saving for months or years while your family remains institutionalized. How soon, you ask? Decision made almost before you realize it. When we have the money, Ellen says simply. The clerk suggests at least half in advance, the rest upon successful discharge. And so a new phase of your life begins, one focused entirely on earning and saving the required sum. You take on additional work, cleaning at a nearby shop before your public house shift begins. You eat less, sleep less, push your illness-weakened body to its limits and beyond. Ellen does the same, adding needlework in her scarce free hours to supplement her laundress wages. The consumption continues its slow progression. On bad days, the coughing brings up more blood, the pain in your chest more severe. The charity doctor, revisited during a particularly bad episode, simply shakes his head and repeats his original prognosis. A year, perhaps, maybe 2, with luck and care. But you don't need 2 years. You need just enough time to free your family, to establish them in a position where they can support themselves without you. It becomes a race your body's decline against your ability to save what's needed. 3 months after your escape, you reach the halfway point. £5, laboriously accumulated penny by penny, hidden in a metal box beneath a loose floorboard in your room. Ellen delivers it to the clerk, who begins the preliminary paperwork, creating the fictional relative who will eventually claim your family. But bureaucracy moves slowly, especially when greased by only limited bribes. Weeks pass with no visible progress. Your health continues its gradual decline. The public housework becomes harder to manage as your strength ebbs, though Simpson surprisingly shows a gruff sort of understanding, assigning you less physically demanding tasks when possible. 4 months after your escape, the clerk reports a complication. Your husband has been selected for an outside work party, sent to a farm 20 miles from London for the harvest season. The separation will delay the discharge process, as all family members must be present for the final approval. It's a setback, but not an insurmountable one. The harvest will end in a few weeks and your husband will return to the workhouse. In the meantime, you continue working, saving, coughing, planning. 5 months after your escape, with autumn turning toward winter, Ellen brings news that the paperwork is finally in order. The fictional relative, a Mr. Thompson, supposedly a cousin of your husband's, has been created and his credentials established to the satisfaction of the Poor Law Office. Your family's discharge has been provisionally approved pending final inspection of their future living situation. This presents a new challenge. The room you occupy is barely adequate for 1 person, let alone 4. A larger space is needed, one that will pass inspection by officials already inclined to be suspicious of such arrangements. Annie, consulted on this problem, offers a solution. A family in her building is returning to Ireland, leaving vacant a small but functional 2-room apartment. The rent is more than you can comfortably afford, but if your husband finds work quickly upon release, if your son's bootmaking skills are transferable to outside employment, if your daughter can contribute through sewing or similar piecework, it might be manageable. With the last of your savings, you secure the apartment and furnish it minimally: a bed, a table, 2 chairs, basic cooking implements. It's nothing like the home you lost, but it's clean, dry, and not the workhouse. It will pass inspection, providing the final step toward your family's release. The day of inspection arrives, cold and clear, 6 months to the day after your escape. The fictional Mr. Thompson, actually a day labourer paid to impersonate your relative, meets the poor law official at the apartment, making a convincing show of kinship and concern. You watch from across the street, your heart in your throat, as they enter the building together. An hour later, they emerge. The official makes some final notes, shakes Thompson's hand, and departs. Thompson gives a subtle nod in your direction before heading off in the opposite direction. His role complete. It's done. The discharge has been approved. In 3 days' time, your family will be released into Thompson's care and, by extension, yours. Those 3 days pass in a blur of preparation and anxiety. You clean the apartment obsessively, stock the small pantry with as much food as you can afford, try to make the sparse furnishings look more welcoming. Ellen helps where she can, contributing a patchwork quilt for the bed, a small mirror for the wall, little touches to make the space feel more like a home. And then, finally, the day arrives. Thompson meets your family at the workhouse gates, escorts them to the apartment as arranged, then discreetly departs. You're waiting inside, your heart pounding so hard you fear it might trigger another coughing fit. The door opens. They stand there, your husband, your son, your daughter, blinking in the dim light of the apartment, still wearing their workhouse uniforms, carrying the small bundles that contain their few reclaimed possessions. They look older, thinner, their faces bearing the unmistakable stamp of institutional life. But they're here, they're free. For a moment, no one moves. Then your daughter sees you, her eyes widening with recognition and disbelief. "Mama," she whispers, the word half question, half prayer. "Yes," you say, your voice thick with emotion. "It's me, I'm here." She runs to you then, breaking the spell of stillness, flinging herself into your arms with a sob that contains all the fear and loneliness of the past 6 months. Your son follows more slowly, his face a complex mixture of relief, confusion, and the premature adulthood forced upon him by the workhouse. Your husband comes last, his expression unreadable, the distance between you measured not just in physical space but in the weight of your choices, the consequences of your desperate gamble. "You left," he says simply. "To get you out," you reply, holding his gaze steadily despite the tears threatening to spill. "All of you. There's a moment when it could go either way, when the hurt of abandonment might overshadow the reality of rescue." But then he nods, just once. Acceptance, if not quite forgiveness. "You did," he acknowledges. "We're out." It's a beginning. If an uncertain one, there will be adjustments, explanations, the slow rebuilding of trust. There will be practical challenges to finding work for your husband and son, establishing a new life outside the workhouse, evading authorities who might still be looking for an escaped inmate. And hovering over it all, the shadow of your illness, the knowledge that this reunion, however joyful, is temporary. The consumption continues its inexorable progression, a fact you can hide for now, but not forever. But that's a concern for tomorrow. Today, in this moment, your family's reunited. You've accomplished what seemed impossible 6 months ago, escaped the workhouse, earned enough to secure their release, created a space, however humble, that is yours rather than the parish's. As you embrace your children, as your husband moves tentatively into the apartment that represents your collective future, you think of all the others still behind those workhouse walls. Ellen's success and yours are exceptions, not the rule. For most, the workhouse is not a temporary hardship, but a life sentence, a slow death of spirit, if not always of body. The system itself would continue for almost another century. Workhouses weren't officially abolished until 1930, and even then many continued operating under different names well into the 1940s. Only with the creation of the modern welfare state after World War II did the last vestiges of the workhouse system finally disappear from British society. But individual escapes, individual triumphs against the system occurred throughout its long and grim history. Not just physical escapes like yours, but spiritual ones, people who maintained their humanity, their dignity, their capacity for compassion despite the institution's systematic attempts to strip these away. Charlie Chaplin, whose mother was confined to the workhouse when he was a child, transformed his workhouse experiences into art that moved millions. Mary Seacole, who faced the workhouse in old age despite her service as a nurse during the Crimean War, found supporters to rescue her from that fate. Countless others whose names aren't recorded in history books found their own paths out, or at least their own ways to endure with humanity intact. The legacy of the workhouse is written not just in official records but in family histories, including, perhaps, your own. The shame and stigma associated with the institution led many who experienced it to remain silent about their time there. Even today, many Britons are unaware that their great-grandparents or great-great-grandparents spent time in the workhouse, the fact carefully excised from family narratives. But the DNA of the workhouse, its assumptions about poverty, its distinction between deserving and undeserving poor, its use of assistance as both carrot and stick continues to influence social welfare policies and attitudes toward poverty in the modern era. The debates about how society should care for its most vulnerable members, about the proper balance between support and self-reliance, echo those that surrounded the workhouse in its time. As night falls on your first day of reunion, your family gathers around the small table for a simple meal bread, cheese, a vegetable soup made from the cheapest produce in the market. It's meagre by outside standards, but a feast compared to workhouse fare. You say a grace that feels genuine for the first time in months, gratitude unmixed with the bitter irony that tinged similar prayers within those institutional walls. After the meal, your children explore the tiny apartment with the wonder of those who have been confined to strictly regimented spaces for too long. Your daughter exclaims over the quilt Ellen contributed, running her fingers over the colourful patches as if they're rare gems. Your son examines the construction of the table and chairs with a craftsman's eye, already improved by his time in the boot shop despite the circumstances of his training. Your husband sits quietly by the room's single window, looking out at the narrow street below, perhaps still adjusting to the reality of freedom, of choice, of a future not dictated by workhouse bells and rules. You move to join him, coughing into a handkerchief that comes away spotted with blood. A reminder that your time together will be shorter than any of you would wish, but it will be real time life on your own terms, not those imposed by the workhouse system. What now? He asks, softly, not looking away from the window. Now we live, you answer simply, for as long as we can, as well as we can. He nods, reaching for your hand in a gesture that bridges some of the distance between you. Together, he adds, making it both statement and question. Together, you confirm, squeezing his hand gently. Outside, the sounds of London continue, horse hooves on cobblestones, distant shouts, the general murmur of thousands of lives being lived in close proximity. Inside, your children's voices rise and fall as they talk about their plans, their hopes, the simple pleasure of having space to move freely. It's not the life you had before the workhouse. It's not the life you might have chosen if given true freedom of choice, but it's life real, unregulated, full of both hardship and possibility. And after the workhouse, that feels like miracle enough. Unlike your comfortable bed now, with its soft pillows and warm blankets, the bed you'll share tonight with your family is narrow and hard, covered with a borrowed quilt rather than fine linens. But it's yours, not the parish's, and that makes all the difference in the world. As your eyes grow heavy with the day's emotional exhaustion, as your body relaxes into the first truly peaceful rest you've known since before the workhouse, a thought drifts through your mind. The workhouse was meant to break you, to punish you for the crime of poverty. Instead, it revealed a strength you never knew you possessed, the strength to endure, to escape, to rebuild. That strength, passed down through generations, is perhaps the most important legacy of all. Sleep well, knowing that the workhouse bells will never wake you again.